afternoon and hello and welcome to Babchas Blog Talk Radio Show. I am your host, Chrissy McMahon, coming to you live from Bristol, Pennsylvania. The weather is mostly cloudy at 61 degrees Fahrenheit. The moon is waning, 92% full, and the sun is active. The music we just heard was from Riding the Banshee, which is royalty-free, available on the internet. Today I have a very special guest. It's Lance White, and Lance is an author, famed and gifted psychic healer, and long-term survivor, 29 plus years of HIV/AIDS. Lance's autobiography, Tales of a Zany Mystic, is an unabashed story of his life from misfortune to celebrity with honor and grace. Daniel Jacobs suggests his book sheds light on a largely misunderstood gay lifestyle, while Barbara Hanclaw, author of Mayan Code, Time Acceleration and Awakening the Planet Mind, calls his book a hysterically funny, wild tale that opens your heart, radiating strength and courage, inspiring us all to awaken now. Lance is the host of the radio show for over 6 years, A Zany Mystic, on BBS Radio Station 1, and it's on the internet Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 Eastern Coast. Lance has graciously agreed to discuss his experience with distilled liquid and liquid therapy as a healing agent and a tool for awakening. So without further ado, I bring you Lance White, the Zany Mystic. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning, Chrissy. It's nice to be here with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show today. And we have so much to get into. I hope that introduction was good because there's so many things about you that are so wonderful and interesting. I would like you to give us maybe a little introduction about yourself, and then we can begin from there. Okay?
Well, I think you kind of did it, and it's funny because I talk to some of the most interesting people on the planet, and I don't like talking about myself. And I think many show hosts probably experience this, although I'm sure there are a few who can't get enough words in edgewise about their own lives and their own interesting experiences. But I do best when I'm talking about a subject other than myself and just talking about my experiences in life, which I feel might benefit someone else out there.
Well, that's
Does that
wonderful,
make sense?
And yeah, it's perfect, absolutely perfect. And it is true. You have many, many wonderful guests on your show. So if people want to go over to BBS Radio, it's on the internet, and check out Lance White, the Zany Mystic, and check out your archives. They have thousands of hours. It's very interesting show hosts besides the Zany Mystic. But we're going to talk about the Zany Mystic today and his wonderful experiences. I wrote a list of questions, and I know that the gist of our conversation is going to be about distilled liquids and liquid therapy as a healing agent and tool for awakening.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know, first of all, in your book, The Tales of a Zany Mystic, you go into your autobiography, which explains how your life progressed from childhood to the current radio show host, and your experience in what we would call alternative lifestyle, the gay lifestyle, which I'm a little bit familiar with because when I was in my 20s, after I started having my children, I wanted to go out and have fun, and most of my friends were gay. So guess where we ended up? In downtown Philadelphia. Some of the greatest gay clubs they had in Philadelphia in the 80s. And I even got to go to the Blue Parrot, which was a drag queen show, a cabaret, which was wonderful. And I had the best times there. So we didn't get to talk about this too much because I talked a lot about the metaphysical stuff, but I have a big following in the gay community, and I also in the 80s got very involved with the AIDS movement, to where people were vocal about, that it was killing men, and nobody was doing anything about it. And I even got some flack from my family because I don't think they understood, why I would be so concerned that people were dying. But, I think that's the key word. People were dying, and nobody was doing anything about it.
That's right.
So
right.
You're going to share a little bit of your experience about how you acquired AIDS and some of the things that you've gone through up into the present to kind of counteract, or to, in the book it seems more like you just kind of followed the regime of the AIDS cocktails that were presented as cure, or at least the prolonging of the life, as you stated in your book, but that turned out to be really a deadly cocktail. And some of your zanier experiences with that, so go ahead.
All righty. Well, thanks, Chrissy. And yes, I love gay clubs, and I had more fun in those places than a barrel of monkeys. In 1983, I had purchased a house in San Francisco, California. I don't know how I managed to pull this off, but it was a very difficult and long process. And I developed a relationship with a very wonderful person, and his name was Don Bird, and we became involved with each other, and he just happened to live, a couple blocks away. So we would spend, time together, and I'd go over to his house, and we'd basically just sleep together and joke around and have fun in bed. It was like we were brothers or kids more than anything else, because it wasn't really much of a sexual relationship, but it was really a loving one. And I will never forget the day he came in. He was a cellist, and he came into the apartment, and he looked really disturbed. And that was when he told me that he had AIDS. And so that was the beginning of his journey, which lasted quite a few years. And during that time, we kind of dissolved the formal relationship, and we continued as close friends. And I had a room opening up in my house, and I asked him if he wanted to come in and live with me. So he did, and I knew at the time that most likely he would die on my watch. And that I had to make that choice, and I am very glad to this day that I chose to be with him, because that was the beginning of his incredible journey, basically leaving no stone unturned to heal himself, and he tried every experiment imaginable. One example would be flying back east to get these injections of what looked like motor oil and into his buttocks, and they were supposedly, that was healing somehow. And during this time, I discovered that I had been infected as well. And that's where I will segue into how I got the HIV virus in the first place. During 1983, I went into the San Francisco Health Clinic for some reason. I don't remember what. I'm kind of a hypochondriac, being a Virgo, and a bit anal retentive. So, if something is wrong with me, I'll go into, at least I did at the time, I would go in and just be checked out. So there was a hepatitis B vaccination study. And I sent you a link to an article that's on Rense.com called The Gay Experiment That Started AIDS in America by Dr. Alan Cantwell, MD. And it just begins by stating that there is no doubt that AIDS erupted in the U.S. shortly after government-sponsored hepatitis B vaccination experiments, in parentheses 1978 through 1981, using gay men as guinea pigs. The epidemic was caused by the introduction of a new retrovirus, HIV, and the introduction of a new herpes 8 virus, the virus that causes Kaposi sarcoma, widely known as the gay cancer of AIDS. So they were offering this hepatitis B vaccination in a series of 3 injections over 3 months, and you had to come in for each injection. They said, if you can't do this, we don't want you if you can't follow up on this. So I was pretty, good about that kind of thing, and I agreed to do it because they said, well, you'll get free blood work for years. We'll be following you, and you'll get all this free blood work and all the benefits. And so I thought, well, this is a really good deal. Wow, I'm going to do it. And so I got the first injection, and then the next month I got the second, third, I got the third. They were following my blood work for about 10 years, which was a bit surprising to me. But, again, I don't think too deeply about things, at least I didn't at the time. And my doctor, at about the 3rd or 4th year of taking my blood and giving me a physical exam, let it slip out that I was HIV positive. And I asked him, well, how did I get it? What happened? He said, well, we know for a fact because we can trace it back to one of the tubes of blood that you donated. And he said it was the second tube. So the first tube where I got the injection from the hepatitis B vaccination, I was negative. 30 days later, I tested positive. And that's something that changed my life, right up until this moment. Now, before anybody gets shocked or horrified or thinks that, I'm out for blood or that I hate the government or I don't like what happened, I don't like what happened. There's a lot more that's going on in the world that's like this, and I have a laundry list of things that are being done to us to dumb us down and basically cull the population.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, exactly. Chemtrails, fluoride in the water, radiation, it goes on and on and on. But for me, personally, that was a moment in time when I realized that I could die. And during that time, in the 1980s, I'd say that was probably about 87 or 88 and 1989, I was living with Don in my house. He was going through his own process, and so we kind of bonded going through this process together. And he was ahead of me trying things like, putting stuff on our, we put stuff on our arms that was for photographic, to make photographs. I can't remember what it was, but there were all kinds of kooky things that we did in those days. And we laughed and had a good time, and I could not believe that he held such a positive attitude, and he was determined to fight it. So about that time, people were hopping on board with AZT, and I had a moment of panic and fear, and I started taking AZT. And I don't remember how long I was taking it, but it might have been a couple of weeks. It might not have been. It was less than a month, most likely. And over that period of time, I felt like the life was being drained out of me, as if somebody had turned on the tap of the water, and it was the life force within me, and it was literally being drained out. I had no energy, no desire to live, there was nothing. I felt like a dead person. And I used to walk his little dog, JJ, around the block, and the block on Potrero Hill went slightly uphill because, the house was built on the side of a hill. And I was walking up the hill one day with JJ to walk her because he couldn't, and I stopped in the middle of the block, and I'll never forget this moment. I thought to myself, if this is what it is like to live with AIDS, I'd rather die. And when I got home, I took the bottle of AZT and I flushed it down the toilet, and I never went back on pharmaceuticals again for 20 years. And I attribute this as part of my intuitive response to the death knell that was being dished out to people of various persuasions. It doesn't matter. people who had contracted this disease intentionally being given to them, and I decided that, you know what, I'd rather die. And so I lived literally with the Damocles sword of death hanging over my head for another 20 years or so before I was to return and revisit the pharmaceutical industry, which I told myself, if they ever come up with enough alternatives and cocktails that look promising and work on many different levels, then I might reconsider. So that is the beginning of my my journey there with HIV and AIDS.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you did touch on the fact that you're not just trying to make the government sound bad, but you are doing what this program seeks to do, is to shed light on things that have been in the dark, things that have been withheld and kept from people.
Yeah, it's not about revenge or anger or anything like that, because, I mean, for crying out loud, I had to turn to a spiritual path and turn away from materialistic things over the years, or I would never have survived this long. And my sense of humor is really what saved me. So, and the fun in the gay lifestyle is also part of that. You know, it's a wonderful, wonderful journey that, you know, is so misunderstood. And I just wish I could share just a fraction of the fun that can be had. And you know, from going to the gay clubs and all that, well, that's kind of finished, but there's still fun to be had with crazy people. So, yes, I'm not interested in revenge or lawsuits or anything like that. I'm way beyond that. In fact, I thank the government for doing this because it really has accelerated my spiritual development. And without that, I probably would have ended up killing myself from drugs and alcohol and something else. So I say thank you for giving me something that has caused me to be alive in this miraculous time, 2011 of all things. I never thought I'd be alive now. I never in a million years. I've been an alcoholic most of my life. I had about 10 or 11 years of being clean and working in corporations. And then I discovered methamphetamine. And I was in San Francisco, and I mean, that's another story if you want to go down that path, but let's just say that I ended up helping a friend out who had AIDS, and he was buying this junky stuff that looked like peanut butter. And I thought, you know, this is not right. The people are using other people, and they're selling them crap. I'm going to try to help him out. And so, again, my best intentions were really caused me to get into dealing methamphetamine in San Francisco in the late 1990s and into 2002. And so I told my friend Kenny that if I could find a connection that would supply what we both wanted, I'd give it to him at a little bit above cost, and then that would pay for mine. No problem. So that he got to be so popular, throwing little parties at his apartment, that he'd be calling me up and saying, well, I need some more. They love this stuff. So it helped him out. It introduced me to a world that I had never known about when I was 48 years old. I mean, come on, how many people in near 50 drop everything and then all of a sudden start doing methamphetamine and having crazy wild times, sex as often as possible, and dealing meth? I don't know too many people who've done that.
Well, it happens all the time. I mean, I went to a training this week, and one of the trainers was in his 60s, I imagine. And he told us about how boring his life was, and I'm sitting there imagining, now, why would he be saying that? You know, is he looking for something more exciting? I have no idea, but you know, it happens all the time. But Dad, I don't mean to interrupt, but Dad.
Well, it's your show. I'm just here. I'm just your guest.
Yeah. Being in addiction, I mean, we can talk about it. I come from the Gestapo line of AA, where, you know, this is something that we have to give it away to keep it. But there's a fine line between self-promotion and promoting the spiritual program. So I think that was part of the difficulty that I had in reading your book, was, I think that it brought up so many things about my own past. The devastation, the self-loathing, the guilt, the shame, and all that. Not that it hasn't been explored through, the 12 steps, doing the 4th and 5th step, and 8th and 9th step, and, talking to other people about my experiences, sharing with others. But I think part of the problem that I had was it has been so long since I've been probably at a meeting that it's time for me to, start working my way back to giving back to people, which is what I believe that you're doing, that you're trying to help people through your experiences, through your book, and through sharing on your radio show and sharing with me now. So with that said, I think that kind of quantifies where I'm at, where I'm coming from with all this. So if you sense my resistance, that's where it's coming from. So
okay,
I
got
it. At that.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Chrissy.
Nope, thank you. Thank you.
Well, it is important for us to be able to look at ourselves with truthful, in complete honesty, because until we can do that, we can't move on. Our feet, our spiritual feet, and our metaphysical feet, and our light bodies are literally nailed to the floor. We're in a biology that has incarnated here at this time, and many are starseed. You pick your label: indigo, crystal, rainbow, big hoo-ha, avatar, guru from the Pleiades, you name it. We're a little bit of all of that and more. And in fact, one of my recent guests and new friends, Anelia Benz, she came in directly from Source, and so that she's a wonderful example that you can come in here without having had an incarnation. And I'm guessing that there are many people who are here without that experience, who are here to assist in the final unraveling of the old paradigms as we create and shift and move into a higher consciousness field, which is already here.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've explained how you believe you contracted HIV. Now, maybe you could explain to the listeners, because I know everybody gets confused. Everybody thinks you die from HIV, and, I go through that, trying to explain that it's the complications of the disease. But maybe you could just kind of explain the difference between HIV and AIDS, and what are some of the things that we have been told that may not be true about the two, and the distinctions and living with HIV and AIDS.
Well, I think that just about everything that we're told by the medical profession and by people even within the gay community who are working with HIV and AIDS is largely a distortion or just plain wrong. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong for everybody. Some of the things that are being shared are accurate for some people, but it's like spirituality. You can't make a general statement and say, well, this is what we all have to do now. We're all on this page, and that's not the way it is. Number one, we're multidimensional beings of light and sound and who knows what else, etheric elements. And so there is no one-size-fits-all, except that we seem to be all here in this boat together. So that part seems to be accurate. At least some of us are here. Some may not be, and some may not be human. But let's not go down that road. So with HIV and AIDS, I did everything that you could do that they tell you not to do. And that's why I mentioned my experiences with methamphetamine. It's not to glamorize or glorify that, because I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. And if you haven't done those drugs, don't start. It's not a good path at this final hour of 11:59 and 59 seconds. We're just about at the finish line. And what comes after that, nobody knows. I mean, I love to conjecture as much as the next person, and I have a few thoughts on it, but it's just conjecture. It's just mind candy. And as many people as I've talked to over the years, and as much books as I've read, and my research in an esoteric school studying Gurdjieff and Ouspensky on becoming conscious, I'm still just a dumb cluck trying to figure things out, although I do have a little bit of an edge in having figured out how much I haven't figured out. So, but on HIV and AIDS, there's so many misconceptions about it, and we're basically being pummeled with fear. And the main thing to know about this subject and all subjects is do not be afraid. It's not a death sentence. And if you want to take it to its natural conclusion, everybody's got a death sentence. Nobody gets out of this one alive that I know of.
Absolutely.
And so, we are spirit or soul, essence, all of those things wrapped up in a tamale that's called a skin bag, a bio bodysuit. And that skin bag, I'm discovering recently through Andrew Norton Weber's work, can be empowered to raise its vibration because it is conscious. The elements within our body are conscious. Our pineal glands have been calcified. And before anybody gets angry about that word, because I know there are people out there who say you cannot decalcify the pineal gland, but it's my own experience that the glands can be healed from within, and that distilled water and other liquid therapies are some of the methods that are just tried and true and work. There are probably other methods, go flying to India and visiting a guru and having him tap you on the pineal gland and say, you are now awake and I have removed all of the fluoride and the mercury from your body and you are now healed. Well, that can happen, but who in the heck has the money, for one thing, to fly over to India? And India is having its own problems, so I really wouldn't want to do that. And besides, I don't like getting x-rayed at the airport. Come on. I mean, my body's okay at 61, but, I don't want them looking at my private parts and all that. So I'm just a little shy when it comes to that kind of thing. And
Absolutely.
So, and not to mention the damage to the body. Come on, people. Why are we sitting back and taking all this garbage from supposed authorities that we have paid to harass us and destroy us and kill us? I mean, this is absolutely utter nonsense.
Well, this is part of the awakening. So, yeah.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, so just to bring it back.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back, can you just give us a brief definition of what's the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Okay, and AIDS. All right.
What's the difference between those two?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't really know because I've only had it for 29 years.
After all this propaganda, we still don't know. We still don't know what it is, and that's great. That's, absolutely.
I really don't know. I wish I could put my finger on it, but I know that they told me. My doctor, as I told you earlier in the program, told me that I seroconverted in 1983, and I believed him because he showed me the blood work, that showed that I was HIV positive. Well, that was a test developed by the infamous Dr. Gallo. Don't get me started. And so I knew that so we shelf that for now. But we, so I knew that I had a life-threatening illness, and what am I going to do? Oh, my God. I've got to take some drugs. What are we doing? And so AZT was the only option, and I told you what I thought about AZT. It was killing me. It literally kills you.
It does. It's been proven by Dr. Duesberg. This is not a lie. This is truth. Factual truth.
Yeah, and all I can speak is
AZT kills.
Yeah, I can only speak my own truth. And
it was developed as a drug to cure cancer, and it was so toxic that the CDC or whatever banned it. It was a banned drug, and they, for some reason, I'm not clear on the thinking of why it was brought back out, but they thought that it would work on the HIV/AIDS infection, or help prolong life, I guess. And actually what ends up happening is the people who are taking those kinds of medications when they have the AIDS diagnosis is that it's actually what's killing them. They're not dying from the Kaposi, sarcoma, and all this other stuff. They're dying from the medications. The medications are so toxic that people don't live 5-10 years. People who don't take the medication are living longer, healthier, and satisfying lives. So and we could get into so many things. I mean, think about Africa, how they convince people that people are dying from AIDS in Africa when it's what is in your book. It says an American disease that started here in America, but yet people are dying in Africa from it. But actually, when you look at the research, you find out people are dying from starvation and malnutrition, but because they can't get funding for anything but AIDS or whatever the trend is for these governments, whatever they're promoting, that they market it all. And even these big rock stars like the guy from Pink Floyd and the guy from YouTube, I don't even say their names, but they get out there and they want to raise money for AIDS, and there is no AIDS in Africa. People are dying from starvation. And that brings us into a whole other genre about in the 50s how they said this mass farming, corporate farming would feed the world, and how today we have the mass corporate farming and more people are starving, more people are homeless in America, and farms are devastated. People in India, farmers in India are killing themselves 10 years ago, and people in Canada are losing their farms because Monsanto seed is blowing in the wind onto their farms, and the corrupt courts are taking away their farms. I mean, the list goes on. I don't want to really digress into all this.
We could spend 2 hours talking about the various things that are conspiracy facts, but we're literally dying over here in America, and we're dying of a lack of nutrition and good water and air. So don't get me started on chemtrails, because that used to be one of my sore spots. But we can take back our power through nutrition and distilled water. So we will eventually get into those things. But yes, the medical profession is barbaric, and it's been created that way intentionally. I know there are a lot of wonderful people in the medical profession, and especially those who are in the front lines, the nurses and the assistants and so on and so forth. Many of the people who have medical training are wonderful souls, and they're doing an incredible job. But the medical profession itself has been waylaid, as has the pharmaceutical industry, and it's a huge business. I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars here, and that's just one more funnel that the power elite uses to rob us of our wealth, our health, and our peace of mind. So, we can come up with a list that's a mile long, and we'd just be no wiser than we were when we started, because I think we're all pretty much in agreement about that stuff.
So
back to the difference between HIV and AIDS. So I was told in the 80s that I had HIV, and I stopped taking the AZT, and then I started living. And basically, I had fun. I did get clean and sober, and I went into a 12-step program, and I had about 11 or 12 years of, working my way through corporations and so on. And it was a wonderful experience, and I highly recommend the program. I'm in a program now. I, stay in touch with that, and I go to meetings and such. But my core essence is spirit. So spirit tells me where I need to go, and I just go wherever I'm shown is the right place in the right moment. And that's called living in synchronicity, total synchronicity. So over the years, I didn't get sick. My friend Don passed in my arms, and he fought a valiant fight. And for somebody that had been one of the first people to get KS, I am surprised that he lasted as long as he did. But it was his spirit that fought. And a funny story is that I was renting out rooms in my house on Potrero Hill across from the projects. And I rented out a room to a guy who seemed like an okay guy, and he was there about 6 or 7 months. And he had a little flu bug, so he went to the doctor, and he came home, and he said, "My doctor told me I was going to die of AIDS in a month." He literally, from being perfectly healthy and happy, just came back, went to bed, and prepared to die. And within a month, I was shipping him off to his mother's house, and within another month, he had died.
Wow.
So there's a lot to be said about the power of thought. Now, me, I don't think. I'm like the fool in the tarot deck. I just kind of blindly go through life stepping on lily pads, and somehow I land on a solid rock. So I've done everything wrong you can possibly imagine, including shooting up methamphetamine for 4 years, having lots of crazy, unprotected sex in San Francisco in 1998 through 2002. And then I was warned by an angel that was in my apartment that I would be arrested. And this was somebody that I had met who went into kind of a trance, and he told me, he said, "I'm an angel and I'm here to warn you." And I wasn't really that high. I had to cut back because I was having heart palpitations, so I was on maintenance, which was a very small amount just to keep going and not go through withdrawals. And the hair on the back of my neck stood up, the arm hair stood up, and I listened. And he told me things that were going to happen in the future. I'd be arrested twice. I would go through 3 live-in programs. And the reason why he was there was to reassure me that through all these affairs that were coming and trials in the near future, to never lose hope. Okay. And, there was more to that, but that was the gist of it. When he came back into his body, he was the same person, the guest that I'd had over, and he didn't remember anything he told me. He just knew he had been gone, and he said, "Well, that happens a lot with me." And he had told me some experiences he'd had with other people, and it was pretty unusual. But, those were the kinds of things that could happen, and this one was quite unusual. Within a month, I was arrested the first time for dealing meth. I got out after a week. I met another guardian angel when I was in jail, and it was in the form of a black man named Catman. And we were talking about our, craziness. He was a thief and, heroin addict. And we just hit it off. We were like old soul friends. And we were in jail with a couple of other people, and he said, "We're getting too old for this." And I said, "Yeah, you're right." And I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I'll get out and win. And just as I had that thought, there was like a golden light in the cell that I could see. It was like a mist. And I heard the name, my last name, White, clanking noises. I was released. And 2 months later, I went back to my apartment, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted to get off the meth. I just didn't have the willpower, and I couldn't do it myself. And it's just, you have to experience some things for yourself the hard way, and my way of experiencing things has always been with a brick hitting me on the head or a house full of bricks. And
I think that's indicative of all addicts.
Really, exactly. And so, so I got a house full of bricks on my head, and I was weak, and I couldn't stop by myself. I hadn't gotten the message yet. So, and the angel's predictions and prophecy hadn't come true yet. I wasn't even thinking about those things. I mean, that had just gone out of my mind. I hadn't even thought that anything more about that at that time. It was just kind of like that had never happened. So I was using a small amount of meth and just trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I don't have any money, and they've taken all my funds, and I don't know what to do, and I just, whine. And so I had one of my friends in Washington, D.C., I had been supplying with, 8, 9, 12, 14 ounces at a time, shipping it through the mail. And he'd ship me some money, and I'd ship him some stuff. Well, I had stopped all that because I told people, if you get caught, and to not get caught, stop, change your phone number, move, take a vacation. Well, I didn't follow any of my own advice, of course. I did everything wrong, and so he convinced me, I just need one more shipment. Just one more, please, can you get something? So I said, well, all right, I'll see what I can do. So I, packaged something up. I found somebody that had something, and I got it together, and it was going out that morning at, as soon as this daylight hit. I had just gotten it in 3 o'clock in the morning, and this was my last shipment, and, right,
Uh-huh.
and I was going to ship it out, and I was, and there was a knock on the door. And sure enough, it was Mutt and Jeff from the Department of blah, blah, blah. And they had been watching the house, and obviously, I was getting ready to do another shipment. Well, I hadn't put it in my safe place, that it was a very good hiding place. I put it in a shoebox and threw it in the closet thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to get rid of it today. So they started tearing apart the apartment, piece by piece. Mind you, I lived in about a 100-square-foot postage stamp apartment on Potrero Hill. Cute little place, but small. And so they eventually got to the closet, and I thought, dear God, please don't let them open the phone box where I'd had the telephone. And as soon as he pulled the box off, I knew what was coming. Oh, my God, it was just torture. He held up the bag with, a huge amount of crystal in it, which I had shrink-wrapped, and said, whoa, what is this? Well, it was a done deal at that point. It was like, okay, can I talk myself out of this? Is there any way I can keep from going to jail again?
Talk yourself out of it, but not them.
And no, there wasn't. I mean, they said if I turned people in, I could do that, but there was really nobody that I could turn in, and I wouldn't have done it anyway. So I didn't, and they hauled me off, took my little dog that I just adored, and that was really the hardest part, was to have a friend come over and have to have me handcuffed and turn over my little, beautiful little dog that I had just bonded with. She had been a terror, a holy terror in her beginning year, but I had just loved her, and she'd saved me from an overdose on one occasion. So that just broke my heart. Well, I went off to jail, and that was a 2-month stint. And unbeknownst to me, Catman, who had been with me in the jail the first time I was arrested, I did not know this. This was at night, and by the time I was taken to the hospital because I had heart palpitations, and I didn't know what was going on, and I was stalling for time. I just couldn't go to jail directly. Do not pass go straight to jail. Well, I had to go to the hospital first. And so they did take me, and by the time all of this worked itself out, I was taken to the Potrero Hill booking station. Well, there was nobody there. I didn't see a soul. I did not know that I was booked and that 2 people behind me, Catman, had been booked also for some kind of offense. I don't know what it was, but he was there somewhere, and I never saw him. Later that night, I was taken in a paddy wagon with some other people. Catman was in the paddy wagon. I did not know that either. And he was high on heroin. I just was looking the other way because I was afraid. I was like a little girly man, I didn't want to know anything about these people that were crazy. And I was just a middle-class white boy that got caught with his pants down, and my, shame on you. And I just was dreading what was to follow. And I had every reason to dread it because it's a horrible experience. Don't do it, folks. This is only for the very strong people. And I wasn't strong, and I'm not strong, but, I got through it. So,
yeah.
And it was a spiritual experience. So this was the second arrest that the angel had told me about. Now, I still had 3 live-in programs to go through. And when I was in jail, I was booked, and I went to the San Francisco County Jail, and eventually I was sentenced and went to San Bruno County Jail. And I write all about this in my book, so you guys buy my book at Amazon.com, Tales of a Zany Mystic, shameless plug here. And you can read all about this. Yeah, and you can read all about this stuff. And so that was quite an experience. I mean, in some ways, I kind of had fun with it because it was just so shocking to my sensibilities that I was just, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm going to ruin my new nylons. And,
County
like the
jail
line
is horrible.
from Female Trouble, when Mrs. Dasher goes along and they're walking over to, to the house for dinner, and she's serving spaghetti, and she says, "Do I look Italian?" Well, anyway, that's just a little aside. So, here I am in jail, and there's rat holes in the food boxes, the cardboard boxes, and I thought, oh, well, that certainly looks tasty. I can't wait to have some of that food. and the people that you're thrown in with, my Lord have mercy, well, it was simply ghastly. And so anyway, Auntie Mame would have been shocked. And so here I was in jail again, and I thought, oh, we've got to do something about this. This is simply too much. Well, I couldn't get out, and I didn't know that my case was hopeless. I mean, I had one of the best attorneys for drug cases in the California. He was known for getting people out of jail. He got me out after a week the first time on a felony offense. I pled guilty. And here I was again, and I thought, well, surely he can get me out again. This is no big deal. I got caught for the same thing. Well, it didn't work that way. There was a DA who was going for the jugular, and I had to prove that I was rehabilitated. So I got a year sentence to a recovery home, of all things. But while I was in there, I decided to go into recovery in the jail, that it might help my case. So
Good
that
choice.
Was there was the first, and I think that was one of the best things that I could have done. Well, when I went into the recovery unit and was finally transferred over there, there's all this red tape. I was out in the play yard or the basketball court, whatever you want to call it, for air, and somebody said hi, and I kind of just said hello back. I didn't know who it was. And I got back in, and somebody said, "Catman said hi to you." And I thought, oh, my God, Catman? So we got reunited, and come to find out he was booked two people away from me at the very same booking station, and we were in the paddy wagon together, and we were there now in recovery in San Bruno jail. I mean, the chances of all of these things aligning at the same time were astronomical against, such a crazy event. So I just thought, well, this bodes well. This means I have a friend here. And he had friends who had killed people, and they'd been in and out, and so they knew the ropes, and they could get all kinds of things like real coffee and butter and stuff. So that kind of helped a little bit. But eventually I did get out, and I had to serve a year in a live-in recovery home. And so that was my last... that was one of the last experiences I had with living in a recovery home, and towing the line and making sure that I was doing the right thing. And when I got out, I moved up to my ranch in Placerville to get out of San Francisco, knowing that I'm a weak person. I'm not really that strong, and I'm strong about some things, but we're multidimensional, and I'm weak about other things. When it comes to pleasure and fun and sex and drugs and things like that, I kind of have a laissez-faire attitude, kind of, well, whatever. And I'm learning at 61 that you can't think that way. We really do have to take care of our bodies, and it's very important and critical at this time. So I was doing my radio show, and I'll just kind of complete this journey so that we can move on to something else. At about 4 or 5 years into my radio show, I started drinking beer again. And it was just a few beers with my neighbors at first, and then it became more beers, and then I'd start waking up, and there would be 15 empty glass bottles of Heineken or some other brew. I don't get paid for this, by the way. I don't get royalties from, any of these breweries. But I'd wake up, and I'd think, oh, my God, did I drink that again? And so then I tried to control it again, and it was the same old story as it was when I was drinking alcoholically and when I was using drugs. I do not know when to stop. I simply do not know the meaning of, one drink is like, never enough. So I knew that my days were numbered, and I knew to go into the program. because I also knew from talking to so many wonderful people on the show that it was mandatory that I'd never make it through these shifts alive if I were still under the influence of drugs. And so Spirit, Source, whatever you want to call it, my team, gave me an experience of having diverticulitis. I woke up one morning and I had painful abdominal feelings that felt like I was getting socked in the stomach and doubling over. So I had to go to the emergency room. After this was on the 4th of July of last year, and
wow,
yeah, and about a year and a half ago, and so I went into the hospital, and I was already prepared to go back into the program. So I knew where the rooms were, and I knew I needed them, and I wanted them. I was so looking forward to the sanctity and the safety and the haven and the friendship and the fellowship. And so I went through, on the 4th of July, I went through all these procedures, and I had a CAT scan. Maybe Catman was there with me, I don't know. In spirit, you know, we're all one spirit here, folks, where there's no differences, there's no separation, just the skin bag, it's just an illusion. And so they told me I had to take 2 antibiotics, and they gave me all my pills, and boy, oh boy, when I was there, they gave me some pain meds. Oh, it was wonderful. And I knew that was my last little hurrah with, you know, feel-good medications from the pharmaceutical industry. So they gave me the medications. They said, well, here's the warning. You cannot drink on these. It's like an abuse. Well, what are the chances? You know, here I come down with something, a disability. I go in on the 4th of July. I stroll in. There were no people in the waiting room. I go out, and it's a zoo. There must have been 50 people waiting to get seen. I go in and out like I'm the king of Sheba and come out with my medication, and I can't drink. I thought, well, this seems like a jolly little surprise from Source. Thank you, dear God. And so I went back into the program and started, you know, being diligent. I'm dyslexic today.
You could be both.
And, yeah, a little bit. I have a little of that stuff where I reverse things, but I think things are reversed already. We're just trained to think backwards.
We're trying to figure it out.
And we're learning how to think. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I've been clean and sober ever since, and my show has taken off. Yeah. So that's my experience, and it took me a lot to get here, but, you know, I thought I was going to be dead at 50. I'm 61 years old, living with HIV and AIDS. Yeah, I'm permanently disabled. I live on, you know, $825 now, I think it is, that the state gives me each month. And so I'm hoping, it's my intention this year to move into abundance and to sell 1 million copies of my book and to have people subscribe to my radio show through the affiliate link and to get off of disability and not accept the government's kind, generous offer. It's been a wonderful blessing, and it's saved my ass. But I think it's time for me to continue to live being who I am, and that's a person who is capable of caring for himself and of healing himself and of being financially secure without any assistance from outside. In other words, completely self-empowered as the star that I know I am, and we all are within. We have that light within us, and that is our star. And George Kavasalis talks a lot about this. He's from Australia, and I think probably the people listening to the show know who I'm talking about, and he's one of the most amazing people on the planet today, and he's going to be gracing my radio show this week. I believe we're doing 3 shows. One will be aired on my usual Saturday, but the 2 others will be in the archives. So that's just to let you guys know that I'm trying to get the very best, the cream of the crop out there for all of us to share. This is not about me. This is about a co-creation of all of us and empowering each other. Yeah, like you're doing.
Yeah, and I believe that you are living in abundance, because when I think about your life and I think about the things that you wrote about in your book and what's happening to us now, I think we are living in abundance, I think that we've been conditioned to look at things backwards, like you were kind of joking about earlier. But I think when we really see it, and I had an epiphany, I don't know if it was this morning or last night, but it just dawned on me, you said it several times, especially towards the end of the book, that they're sucking our energy, they're living off of us, and the powers that were, whatever you want to call them. And I thought about it, well, maybe they're not sucking our energy so much as using the negative energy to get their agendas through. So I don't know, if that's a plus and instead of an or, but, it just seems to me that it's not so much that they're eating, although Andrew and I actually found a picture after he talked to me about this, that they're sucking off the energy. But it just dawned on me that, when you get this mass of people all thinking in the same mode, that we know the power of attraction and all these things that we're learning about today, that, through your intention and through your thoughts, as you had said earlier, can really put you in a state or direct your life to manifest things. So that it's possible that through the media and through all these things, political and otherwise financial, that they're creating their agenda because everybody is, stuck in that emotional, and it's the emotional frequency, like Dr. Chu on your show, beyond the power, of attention or whatever, beyond the secret, whatever his website is, that he talked about. It's the emotion behind it that empowers your thoughts. And, I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, you brought up the subject, so I feel comfortable about sharing some of my thoughts about that. And this goes back to my days in the 70s of being in an esoteric school studying Gurdjieff's ideas and Ouspensky, the mathematician and philosopher. And over the decades that I've been researching energies, I feel pretty confident in stating that there are denser energies that are not connected to source, source being an aspect of all that is, and those energies cannot tap into source because they are not, they have chosen for whatever reason, or, you can make up something for yourself, but let's just say they're not tapping into the life force that we are. We are organic beings of light and sound and higher vibrations.
Absolutely.
These energies are darker, and they cannot tap into source because their source of power is lower. It's a lower density. So to feed their own energy, to feed, to live, and to thrive, and to survive, these are slightly higher dimensional entities of a negative persuasion, a negative vibration, and they have to suck the energy from us like vampires. It's very similar to the Matrix trilogy and to many of the other movies of the vampire series, and we can see that in life as, ticks on our animals, fleas, crabs. I mean, anything that is a blood-sucking...
parasitic.
Parasitic, that's it, exactly. And so we are the elite, the managers and the minions, and those that are being controlled from the top down, are being run and blackmailed and rewarded. It's really a very simple system. It's kind of childish, really, by these entities that are unable to exist without that lower food. And that lower food happens to be negative emotions, fear, and, shock and awe, and destruction and death. And so we're living on a planet that is controlled by these entities that have been around for millions of years, hundreds of thousands, millions of years. They've been working on this planet. And some people can trace it back to the beginning of the patriarchy to 5,000 some odd years ago, which is all fine and dandy, but this planet has had a history of being infected with this virus. Let's just call it a virus. John Lamb Lash and other people call it archons. There are other names for it. Harry Potter calls it Voldemort, I think. There's another word, John Dee in the Queen's time called them the macros. Well, these scurrilous beings keep a very low profile, and I believe that they have invaded our system and have been here for a very long time, and that they run bases on the other planets, Mars, Moon, and so on, with using artificial intelligence and severe control devices. Basically, black operations that have money funneled to them through the drug industry and the royal families and the people and the mafia families. They're all in bed together. So this is a coerced system that's controlled basically, like David Icke says, like a pyramid. But the downfall is that we are waking up to this and we're taking our power back, and it really is a first. It's not quite a first. There have been attempts before, and there have been ascension periods before, but this is an unprecedented moment in that there are so many cycles, some of them billions of years long, coming to an end at the very same moment in 2012. And I look at 2012 as a window, not as a date. It is a window, a quantum window, that's open today. In other words, it's open for business, folks. If you want to, ascend or escape or live in a higher consciousness or live from a higher density, you can do it right now. And so it's not that complicated, but it does require a lot of work. And it does require effort, and it does require constant vigilance of our thoughts, our emotions, our everything. And for me, with 29 years living with this disease or this dis-ease, it's really an artificial construct, a thought form, if you will, just as I am a thought form. There is no Lance White. There is no Zany Mystic. I am not real. This is a manifestation of cells that will unravel at the right moment, and the spirit that I am will be the vast and great, cosmic whatever that I already am. But in the meantime, I'm living in a biological bodysuit, and so I find that it behooves me to wash that suit out and keep it clean. And that entails some discomfort, because I can't just do anything I want, and I've found that distilled water is helping to wash out the glands. The pineal gland in particular is a very important gland. I think we all have heard of it. Everybody wants it. But as Andrew says, it gets to be blocked because it attracts, like a magnet, fluoride and a lot of other substances. So on an X-ray, it actually looks as if it's calcified. That's kind of a misnomer, and people can split hairs about it. Let's just say it's not functioning properly, okay? Call it calcification, or, it's plugged up like a drain. Whatever you want to call it, let's not get split hairs about this. It's not functioning properly because the powers that control this planet, and they're still in control for the most part. There are inroads, and I can see that, source energy is beaming here in unprecedented quantities, but and we're about to get a final blast or two or three. But in the meantime, we have to go through the effort to raise our own vibration and at least meet heaven halfway in the middle. So it's kind of a process as I envision it, and this is not necessarily how it is, but it's kind of like, and the mind has to have things to visualize. Heaven, or the higher densities, higher energies, are always present, and we are raising our own vibration intentionally to meet somewhere in the middle, and that middle is the breakthrough point of the fourth density, which is where the structures of control and artificial intelligence set up interference waves to keep the higher dimensions from coming through. And the best book that I've ever read on this subject is written by a friend of mine, Barbara Hand Clow, and it's called The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. And she is one of the most brilliant people on the planet today. I mean, there are a lot of them. So, I have my own little list of people, but she's come out with some of the most amazing information. And that book is my, you could call it kind of like a New Age Bible, if you will. And that tells us how to tap into the 5th through the 9th dimension easily. These higher densities are not tricky, folks. They're there all the time. We were meant to experience them and to process these incoming densities from the 4th dimension, which is simply supposed to be a polarized field through which we filter and choose our own experiences. But these tricky, slightly higher dimensional entities that are of a negative persuasion have created a holographic insert that's distorting everything that we see through the 5 senses. So to break through the illusion of the matrix, it's necessary to have a strong desire to do it, because it ain't easy, folks. But it's also so easy that you think, well, gee, why didn't I do this before? So it's not easy, and it is easy. It's a paradox. And everything that we can think of, if it contains paradox, it's probably accurate. When we start thinking outside of black and white, either or, you are this, you're that, then we're moving into these higher dimensions. And I've been training my mind to think this way since the 1970s, so I have a pretty good grasp on how to do it. And it requires living in the question and not having answers for everything and being unafraid. We have to process our fears. And I have to go through this every day. I have fears about living and dying, and I, again, have to process, this and that and the other thing. So I'm not exempt from any of these things because I'm in a human suit or dress or whatever you want to call it. Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe's outfit. I don't know. But the other thing is to have fun while you're going through this process, because if you can't have fun while you're here, what's the point?
Absolutely.
What is the point?
You speak so well, about this metaphysical, and, I don't want to say metaphysical because it's not outside of the physical. It's just because we're unknown to it. It's unknown to us. We don't all understand this. This is more real than the reality that those people in 3D are experiencing on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
So we need to understand that there's more to what we see, hear, feel, touch, taste, smell than we can imagine. And understanding that, I guess, who was it? Was it Roosevelt? The only thing there is to fear is fear itself, and all these things that come to us. They do make a lot of sense. They are trying to lead us in the right direction, but when we stay attached to the material, we stay attached to this lower density, it's it's hard to see beyond it. So I think that's and as I'm reading over my questions, and one of them was discuss opinions and experiences with HIV medication, and I realized the pharmaceutical company has taken the natural, organic form of what was ancient technologies, medicines, and cures and things that the shaman used, and turned them into inorganic, useless, dangerous, deadly concoctions.
Yes.
And
yes, and I would like to talk about that before the show is over, because that's an important topic.
Okay, I believe we're at 1 hour and 10 minutes into the show, and I didn't even ask you if you wanted to take any breaks.
No, I'm fine. If you want to take one, that's okay. I don't.
No, I'm cool. This is awesome. This is just.
I'm on a roll
your
now.
whole flow. Yeah.
You can't shut me up.
You go, girl.
Thank you very much. Well, I can go on here because I did. People might be wondering, well, did I take medication again? Well, yes, I did. When I came up here after I got out of my recovery home sentence, which was a year living in a recovery home, and that fulfilled the final prophecy of the angel, I came up here to write my book, and that didn't happen immediately, but that's what I came up to do. And I had just started taking a cocktail in San Francisco at the recovery home through Baker Places. A wonderful, wonderful place, by the way. I can't say enough good things about those people. They saved my life, and I lived in a wonderful house in the Avenues, and it was just a magical experience. So I began taking a cocktail that included the drug Sestiva. Now, some of you listening and some of you that will hear this at a later date will know about Sestiva because Sestiva causes dreams, very vivid dreams. Well, it does more than that. For me...
I'm sorry I'm laughing. It isn't funny, but the way you write is hysterical. So. But just go ahead. I'll be quiet. I'll try to be quiet.
It was like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Disneyland 100,000 times magnified. Except I couldn't get off the ride. It was like, oh my God, what now? So Sestiva crossed the blood-brain barrier while I was in San Francisco, and I've been doing healing work for 15 or 20 years with a small group of healers. And I was on the internet. I'd had my first dose, I think, the day before. So, mind you, you have to take your HIV drugs daily. So I was now committed. After 20 years of not taking them, I thought, okay, this looks promising, I'll take it. Well, I started to have this strange feeling in my body, and it reminded me of the times I had dropped acid when I was, in my teens and in my early 20s. And I couldn't figure out what it was. Well, I didn't quite figure it out, but I started channeling God, or a God energy. Let's just say it was an energy that was extremely intense, and I was writing to my healing group, and I was just typing like a madman, and I felt as if Lance, the personality, the ego or whatever, the small Lance, had been moved aside, and this energy, which was like a freight train, came through me, and it was a presence, but it was a good presence. It wasn't a bad presence. And it was, I could grasp little feelings of it, and I was trying to type, and then a sentence would come through, and then it was all jibberty-jobberty. And so it was, big things are coming, change is coming, It sounded like a channel piece from, one of the contemporary channelers, that says, big changes are afoot. Well, we know that. Come on, get to the good stuff. So I was typing all this stuff out, and this went on for about 30, 40 minutes, and then it was over, and I was allowed to move back into my body. Well, I didn't know what was going on. I had to pack my bags and get out of the house and get the computer packed up, and so I did that, got everything in the car, and took somebody over to a halfway house because he had slipped again en masse, and he just couldn't get his act together. So I dropped him off at the detox, and I was on my way home. Get home, take my Sestiva and the other drugs with it. I don't remember what they were. The next day was the same. It was like, wow, everything looks so different. Well, it was like being on a mild acid trip. This went on for days, and I had so many crazy metaphysical experiences that I can't even begin to cover them here. You'll just have to get my book and you'll read about them. And maybe we'll do some future interviews. I don't know. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was crazy, and I was tapping into higher dimensions, and I was up to about the 21st dimension at one point, and I was communicating with these beings. I don't know who they were, but they were, they were higher dimensional beings to me. I couldn't see anything. I just would ask it was kind of like a Socratic experience, Socrates or Plato might have had, where a question would be asked to the cosmos, and the cosmos would answer. Well, I was doing ritual 24 hours a day. I wasn't sleeping, and I was doing things around the house, and basically I got a wild hair up my you-know-what to go back to San Francisco and pick up the rest of my belongings. And this was about the 5th or 6th day into this Sestiva experience, and I had a moment where I thought I was okay. And I got into the car, and I never give an alcoholic and a drug addict and an HIV pill taker the keys to the car. It's a big mistake, folks. Do not drive if you're high, okay? I am personal witness and testimony to that experience. So I get on the road, and I'm having these metaphysical experiences with other people on their cars, and I'm stomping on the gas, shifting gears, and I have an old black 95 Lincoln LSC. It's a coupe, the sports coupe. And you don't have to shift it, but I was shifting gears, and I was speeding up, and I was slowing down, and I was darting in and out. People must have thought I was insane. I didn't notice anything. I was in my own dimension. And I was going up from the third to the fourth to the fifth, the sixth, the seventh. Well, I was tapping into future probabilities and future possibilities, and they were all occurring simultaneously. There was an atomic bomb that went off in San Francisco, and I was guiding all of the wonderful people back up to the hills to save them. There was the president's jet was being bombed. And,
oh, my God.
You know, this was when Bush was still around, and since he's still alive, I can say that safely without getting, somebody on my tail. But it was crazy stuff. And I got about halfway down, and I thought, oh, my God, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I am. What's going on? And I thought, okay, I'm in a higher state of consciousness. Okay, we know that. So I was able to stop somewhere and ask directions, but it was like people were not real. Nothing was real. I couldn't comprehend what they were saying. So I got back in my car and started driving. What else does an alcoholic do? You get in your car and you drive, You drink with a six-pack next to you. Well, okay, so I was driving. I found the freeway. Whew, back on the freeway. I got about two-thirds of the way home, and I started thinking about, gee, we're natural beings. We weren't meant to wear clothes, so I was stripping in the fast lane on the freeway going back to my home in Placerville. I managed somehow to wiggle out of all my clothes, so I was stark, raving naked in this black Lincoln, driving in and out of traffic, accelerating and stepping on the brakes, all, at the same time, shifting in and out of gears and into higher dimensions and lower dimensions, and just having a wonderful time when I ran out of gas in the fast lane and I pulled over on the left side, not the right side. So all these cars are whizzing past me. Well, of course, the police come by, and they don't know what to do with me. Here's this naked man in his 50s, happy as a clam, and I was communicating with their higher selves, so I knew what was going on. I mean, really, this is true. I knew that they were like puppets being controlled by their higher self, and I was at the higher self level communicating psychically with all of this. So I wasn't afraid, and I tested it out because the guy who came to pick my car up with a tow truck was an incarnation of my friend Kevin, who wrote the foreword to my book, and he looked like him, so I knew that was his energy. So this is how these things work on a higher dimensional level. You can recognize people's energy signature, and they can come and go like the same soul group. Like my friend Stella was in the hospital, and I knew it was her because of her energy signature. So, and there'll be some similarity or a name similarity, and you can pick these things up yourself. It's not rocket science. It's intuitive. You tune into your intuitive self. And so I looked at this guy, and I was communicating with him telepathically too, psychically. And I said, well, if you're, just to make sure that I'm not crazy, if you're Kevin, if you're an incarnation of Kevin, turn around and nod your head. He turned around and nodded his head.
Absolutely, right.
And I'm sitting in the back of a police car naked, and so I'm just kind of happy as a clam. Well, and they're out there discussing what to do with me. Well, I told them, look, this isn't a problem, folks. Just get me to the hospital. I'll be all right. And so I told them what had happened and what I thought had happened. I said I was on medication, and that's all I remember. So they got me to the hospital, booked me into the emergency room. I was able to dress, I guess, in the back of a car. And so the hospital didn't know what to do with me. So I was in a little holding room with no windows and talking to the fly and, some of the beings that were there.
Right.
And my friend Stella comes in. She's a nurse. And she had deceased. My friend Stella was in the esoteric school, the Fellowship of Friends, with me, and she was one of my best friends. Well, she had passed on. This woman looked exactly like Stella. Same energy,
wow.
Same voice, everything. And she told me verbally that the ETs were testing my blood so that they could come up with a cure for me, because they have these things, and it's real simple to do. They just had to have some of my blood. Well, I don't know if she really said that or not, but she did get some of my blood, so I'm waiting for the analyze my blood and figure out, how are we going to get rid of this thing? And because I think meth came in from a ship in the first place in the 1940s, and it was released accidentally. But that's a whole other story. But anyway, so I was admitted to the psych ward, and I was taken through a set of closed, locked doors. People had to come from another department and unlock that first set, and then they were the only people who had those keys, and then they disappeared. The second set was the big set of locked doors. You didn't get out unless they let you out. And I wasn't afraid. I just, this was all a new experience. So I get in there, and I'm on a psych ward, and I was with other psych people. It was amazing. I've never had so much fun in all my life, and I met some very wonderful people, and I was watching VHS movies, and they were directly beamed in the moment to me with private messages and everything. So it was a wonderful 7 days, and on the seventh day I rose. They released me on my birthday. Of all things, they let me out on my birthday. And so, I know that it has significance for me because, it was my birthday and I'm getting out of there. Well, where's my car? Well, it's in storage. It's $400. So I had to get a taxi to drive all the way to Placerville, and fortunately I had enough money left over. And that was about the last of it. And my house was a wreck. But that's another story.
That's another story.
I mean, I could tell stories till you guys are all snoring and cutting Z's. But so I got back, got my car, and, came home, and it was just the most depressing period of time that I have ever had in my life. Well, maybe not the most depressing. I've had quite a few of those. But all of this magical mystery tour that I had been on, which included taking my dad's ashes from the urn and taking handfuls of them in some kind of metaphysical ritual and tossing them on the ceiling and the walls and putting them in the property and putting them in these 3 raised beds, and everything meant something, and that was the bed that Christ was in, and then there was but he wasn't really in that one, he was in the other one, they just said he was in the middle. Oh, it went on and on and on. It was really quite crazy. But it was a lot of fun until I got home, and food was all over the floors, and it just took me a good year or two to recover from that experience.
Well, depression can't hit a moving target, so when you came home you had lots to keep you busy, I guess.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
God.
No money.
What a sight.
No HIV drugs. I couldn't take Sestiva, so the high was over, and winter was starting, and it was raining, and I was alone. And so that was the beginning of a very dismal period when I didn't have antidepressants or any kind of medical support, and it was just a horrible, horrible time for me personally.
And being an only child, you really didn't have any family, or, most of your friends had passed.
Yeah.
So you really were isolated, completely isolated. Yeah.
Yep.
That is a horrible experience.
Yeah, and I had to literally rebuild from nothing again. One more time. Okay, I guess I'm going to be alive. I can't. I got to clean up the house. I couldn't live with. I mean, there were books piled up to my ankles. I took everything. It was my way. One of the rituals that I had gone through was releasing my attachment to all things material. And the house and the property was part of that process of releasing myself from all material attachments. And so that was something that I went through on a physical level and a metaphysical level at the same time. And it was kind of when I turned my inner eye on, my third eye was active, and it is always available to us, and that is the third eye, which turns within. And it actually has rods and cones that face in the other direction. So when I made that turn of perceptual shift that Carlos Castaneda calls changing the assemblage point, I literally shifted my perception and was literally in another dimension because my third eye was what I was seeing through, and it connected to the physical eyes, and that makes a triad or a trio, a law of three, which is the Holy Trinity, if you want to call it that. There are lots of names for these things. Gurdjieff called it, three forces, that nothing can happen without three forces: active, passive, and neutralizing force. So, triangles are kind of important in the scheme of things. It's one more form of geometry that we can look to, and they're available in crystals and so on and so forth naturally. And so this is my recent incarnation as a living body of light, because it's my intention to live as a light being before I leave this planet. And that simply entails following the guidance that I have connected to over these years, and I am listening to and following. And it's really pretty simple. You just listen and you do what your guidance shows you. And when you make a mistake, then usually it's self-will or some form of the lower self that's interfering. It's not really interference waves from the lower dimensions, because those are no longer. I'm not really subject to those anymore. I don't feel that I'm subject to those laws. I have to obey those laws, but I don't feel that those laws run me at this point. And so it's a matter of connecting with other people of like mind and learning how to share this information that can empower everybody to find their own way to their own higher self and the star that is waiting within, or that's already shining. I mean, a lot of people are already, they're bright lights. I'll look at YouTube videos and find a 16-year-old talking about meditation and think, oh my God, that's so
absolutely
profound.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and
it's amazing.
Kids, oh my God, they're really, somebody said the kids will show us, and I think we all know where that came from, and it's true. It really is true. It's our essence. And we have the child within, and that child has to be uncovered, and it's a matter of dissolving the personality that is encrusted around it. And, many people think that they're the jewel by becoming famous personalities or rich or whatever, but those are all diversions that keep us from being the innocent essence that we are, that's natural and organic, and that knows things intuitively, just like we did when we came out of the womb. And we had to learn all these things, and now we're unlearning. And it's a process of returning, or however you want to see it, it doesn't really matter, but of returning to ourselves and being the authentic self that we are.
That's beautifully said.
Oh, thank you. It was channeled, so I can't take credit. Just kidding.
That's okay. But you said it, but you're sharing it. That's important.
Yeah. It's a co-creation.
Okay. As I was reading the book, I'm glad you're sticking to the metaphysical theme, because I think that's the most beautiful part it weaves throughout the whole book. Life is a process, not something to feel shame, guilt, and feel fear over. Creating success in your mind, it inevitably comes. I wanted you maybe to touch on that process a little bit more, which you have been doing pretty much. Not just for recovery, but as you explained, the metaphysical process of unlearning what we've learned, what we think we know, and realizing our own true potential, the light within. So I think that's, beautifully spoken.
Well, thank you. And if you have something, I'm trying to tap into what it is that you're. Well,
I think you pretty much spoke about that. Evolving spiritually.
Well, yeah.
Towards evolving in fear, emotional cleansing, onion tears. You talked about the onion tear. I think that was going through the Festiva experience.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, dinner at the end of the galaxy.
Yeah, don't panic. Exactly. I mean, if I can live through all these crazy experiences, including totaling cars, I mean, I've lived through so much, folks, that it's really defies gravity and belief that I'm sitting here talking to you now. So, I mean, I have to know. There's no way that I can be in denial anymore. And so denial is not a river in Egypt. And although one of my friends, Carmen Bolter, is over there in Egypt now, and she was going to, she had agreed with the Department of Antiquities to open the Great Pyramid to her group. But I saw an article saying that they were concerned about people doing funny things at that time. So I don't know yet if she was successful in her 11-11-11 group at the Great Pyramid. But I know I'll find out about it, and she'll be on the show probably whenever she's able to be on the show. So, but yeah, it's so simple that it's just a matter of following your intuition. And you know, when you're born empathic, and I think we all are, and we're moving into total telepathy soon, if not sooner, that this is the way that we will reconnect as one in consciousness, and that we're already connected. So it's just a matter of the distortions being moved away and breaking up, which is I see that happening now all over the planet. But when you listen to your own inner guidance, and everybody knows what that is for themselves, then you're building a muscle each time you follow that. And it's really like building your psychic muscles and moving out of the left brain into the right brain so that the balance can be restored. And the distilled water is kind of like the kick. One of my favorite movies is Inception, which is about the kick and water and baptism and going into lower densities through the dream. Well, it's really, that stuff is happening right now, and they mentioned that the military is doing this. Well, they've been doing it for some time now, and I'm pretty sure that what they said about corporate espionage is very accurate, that they go in through the dreams and that they can, alter reality. Well, they can alter their reality, but they can't alter mine. So we need to be aware and cognizant of our own realities and what we're creating with our thoughts and emotions, and also to not be afraid to make mistakes either. So there.
Yeah, I know, and it went on. When I was listening to Cliff High, he spoke about the painfulness of learning and how emotionally charged it is to learn new things. And I think your experience throughout the book kind of proves, we have this self-will. We come into this 3D, low-density, vibrational existence, and we have this materialistic, physical experience, and we get attached to it. And then to unlearn, that this is the dream. This is not, this is not the reality. This is just, something that we came here to experience, And as you wrote so eloquently in your book, that, this is God is experiencing through us, through everyone who comes in here. That I don't know where I'm going with that, but and what that has to do with distilled liquids. But I think it kind of goes with the painfulness of learning. The painfulness of learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and distilling our own experiences, everything is kind of like a metaphor. So distilled water is a metaphor, but it's also a reality on the physical planes. And it literally flushes out the toxins and the fluoride that's keeping us stuck in relation to ideas that are being fed to us intentionally. And whose fault is it if we, don't make the effort to do our own homework and move out of that? And if distilled water is one of the ways that appeals to you, that works, try it. And, as Andrew says, you can get a gallon of distilled water at Walmart for 83 cents, under $1. And when I heard your show with Andrew just less than 3 months ago, I'd say about 2 months ago, I was so taken aback by the information that you two shared on there, and it was just stunning information. I mean, and Andrew, as you know, Andrew was on my show last night, and he is so eloquent.
It was amazing. Absolutely.
Oh my God,
Amazing program.
He is just incredible, and I may not be brilliant in my own right. I have my own experiences of having overcome my weaknesses and many hardships, but Andrew is brilliant. And I recognize brilliance in other people. So when he came out with this information, I saw...
to a radio show.
On the phone?
Definitely.
Yes?
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead, you're there.
I saw that this is a way that I am going to further my own experiences, because everything he said sounded right on to me. So the next day after your show, your original Blog Talk show that I heard after Diana Lupi had sent me a link to it, she was so astounded that she sent it before she'd heard the whole 2 hours. And I was listening to it, and I was so astounded, I sent it to all my friends, and guests, some of my guests that I sent stuff to. And well, that's another story. But I went out and bought 32 gallons of distilled water the next day. And it just happens to be that Walmart was reorganizing here, and they had pallets of it in boxes. Well, I thought that was how they ordinarily sell it, in the center of the store in boxes. So I loaded up like 6 boxes of it. It was 6 by 6, 5 boxes, and 2 extras. And carted it off, shoved my little cart out the door and loaded it in the trunk and started my distilled water cure. Well, to continue with this medication thing, I had been on medication through Sacramento Cares for about 6 years now, and have been diagnosed with total disability from AIDS. And so I was on a cocktail at the time that I heard this about the distilled water. I started drinking the distilled water 1 gallon a day or more, because I started making it in my coffee. And this was in September. And on the 27th, I had an awakening. And I don't know how to describe it. I've got notes. I haven't even had time to go back and look at them. But it was another metaphysical, spiritual awakening of higher consciousness. And during those epiphanies, from having had the distilled water washing away, I guess, the cleansing the pineal gland and some other glands, I had clarity and epiphanies again, and I decided that if I was ever going to break free from the pharmaceutical industry and from the toxins that I was taking into my body that were inorganic, that were just blocking my finer senses, that I would have to give up my HIV meds and my pain medications, my Vicodin, my sleep medication, which was Ativan, and I had been taking Ativans like candy because of the energies that were going on were just demolishing my physicality, and I couldn't handle these incoming energies, so I had started relying on pharmaceuticals to do that for me. Which is an old pattern from the beginning when I got out of my mother's womb on meth. She was taking little Red Cross pills. So anyway, on the 27th of September of 2011, which was just a couple of months ago, I decided to stop taking my HIV meds and to literally jump off the cliff, not knowing if I could fly. And I did that, and what happened that night, I didn't know if I was going to live or die. The pain in my head and my body was so severe, the detox was horrendous. Now, mind you, I was detoxing off of not just Ativan, Vicodin.
I know. I was going to say, didn't anybody ever tell you not to just stop taking that? Oh, my God,
I never do what people tell me what to do.
How many milligrams were you taking of Ativan?
I do the crazy thing. Okay, I'm going to stop them all. And that's exactly what I've done. And over the years I've done that.
I was a drug and alcohol counselor, and when I worked in Florida, about 75 to 85% of the people in there were on prescription medications, were in jail or had an addiction to prescription medications or legal alcohol.
Oh, yeah. So it's not something I recommend.
Bizarre, and that was one of the things, Ativan, if you just stopped taking that you could die. You could literally die from...
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? I had made friends with death many times, and if it was my time to leave the planet, I would have left, because let's face it, 29 years living with HIV and AIDS, I mean, I've had so many near-death experiences, it's not even funny. I mean, I could tell you about several times when I literally died and was reborn, but this particular night, I made that choice, and I figured, well, this is now or never. My guidance was showing me you have to stop now if you want to break through this egg shell. And Dr. John J. Harper said something on one of my shows years ago. He's passed since, but Mona Delfino and I were talking about him because he was a good friend of hers as well. And he said that, and this is the only time I've ever heard this, that when a certain chickens or birds are about to hatch from the egg, they start pecking out. And he said, do you know why? Well, I always thought that they just grew to this point where they had to get out. That's not why. Apparently there is some kind of poisonous toxic substance that's released at a certain moment in the embryo or the beginning, the chick's egg, and they literally are pecking to get out so they can live because they can't breathe that toxic substance. So this was kind of like one of those moments for me, and I knew that I could always go back if I had to. But I didn't. And the Kundalini energy was coming up through my crown chakra. So there were lots of things that I was aware of that had to be dealt with. But the worst was the detox and throwing up and the pain and the agony of it all. Oh, the pain, says Dr. Smith. Oh, stop that robot, will you please? And
danger.
So I went through this night, and I tried to sleep, and I closed my eyes, and I was having lucid dreams. And when I woke up, I took my blood pressure to see what it was, because I take it, every 2 or 3 days to see how my blood pressure is doing on my blood pressure meds. It was 89/58, and my pulse was 39. So it was a little bit off, to say the least. Yeah. And I just, it was like, oh, that's interesting. I must have died and been reborn in the crystalline realms. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. What's going on outside? So I looked outside, and everything was crystalline. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. Is this what everybody's going to be going through? And the voice said, it's happening now. We're shifting into a crystalline realm. And Andrew said last night, and I agree with him, our pineal gland is crystalline.
Oh.
So the fluoride destroys the DNA ladder, the little lines in the ladder that you could walk up if you were a mini person in your DNA, in your own DNA. It shreds your DNA. So
the carbon bonds, yep.
Yeah, and so it's no wonder people can't think clearly. It's no wonder people aren't having an ability to communicate with their higher self. They've been cut. We have all been cut off from our own inner guidance and our connection to our soul, our self, our higher self, and source, and all that is, through these artificial constructs which shred and demolish our organic systems. So when I realized that, and I'm just starting to do the research which backs it up, but I had a realization, an epiphany, that yes, the crystalline realms, the telluric realm is the second dimension. The first dimension is the crystalline core, as Barbara Hand Clow points out in her book, The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. We're in the third dimension. The fourth dimension is like a canopy, which is supposed to be an organic filter for the higher dimensions, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we're supposed to have clear access to all of these realms simultaneously, and we can and do. And the interference wave comes from these beings who have created a false holographic reality which has the illusion of having all these dimensions in it, but it only goes up to the highest dimension of the fourth density. It doesn't go on beyond that. So once you break through the illusion of a false veil and the hologram, you're no longer subject to it. You're free. And we're free anyway. So it's the whole thing's an illusion. It's a triple, quadruple illusion because it's an illusion on so many different levels that it's almost hilarious. And once you see the sham of it, you can't not see it. It's like one of those those things that you twist back and forth, and you look at it one way and it's a cow, and you look at it the other way and it's a ghost or something. Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about, the squares and the tubes and stuff. So I didn't go back on my medication, and it's been 2 months, and I've been doing the distilled water every day, and I wouldn't go back now to tap water if you paid me. Once I learned what was in tap water, and there's a report from the University of Pennsylvania and Carnegie Mellon University, which shows water just taken from the tap before and after distillation, and it has fluoride, chlorine, cryptosporidia, giardia, lambia, arsenic, barium, boron, cadmium, cobalt, iron, lead, mercury, nickel, selenium, vanadium, radium, that's radiation, folks, in the water that is given to us to drink, chloride, nitrate, ammonia. It goes on and on and on. I could read here for another 5 or 10 minutes. After distillation, those things, the heavier elements, cannot exist because it's a natural, organic process that nature has devised in its infinite wisdom. The creator, the source, whatever you want to call it, God, all that is, creator, creatress, goddess, Mother Earth, the Great Mother. They're all it's the same energy, which is a higher source which we are connected to naturally and organically, and which is loving and benevolent and kind and just so amazingly intelligent and infinitely wise that we can all tap into. And it's the field behind everything that exists. It's the invisible, and it's all that is and nothing, and it's beyond matter and all of this stuff. So, but since we are in organic bodies, we are, okay, let me get that straight. Since we are living spirit within organic containers, then we can look to nature for guidance and see that the natural distillation process is a wonderful event. It's been derailed by those who would control us and would like to finish the job by microchipping us and keeping us in artificial worlds forever. And I, for one, don't find that particularly appealing, no matter how enchanting the virtual world is that they present to us. It's still artificial, and it's not source energy. They cannot come up with source energy because those beings are not living connected to source. So they're like vampires, and they have to live through our energy because we are connected to source. And if they cut us off from source, which has been a very clever process over these eons, then we're easily controlled and manipulated, and it's just a matter of waiting till these major jumping points, and they can harvest those people who have lost their way. And I'm here to tell you there aren't any people, human entities anyway, that are going to be lost, because the source is always ever present and can't lose anything except its mind. And we can all lose our minds because we need to get out of our minds to be in our hearts and in our spirit. And that's just that's the way it is, you know. Well, you can't think your way out of a paper bag, but you can certainly blow it up and pop it, and but you can't think your way out of a paper bag. So thoughts and thinking and discussions are good, but we have to take action at some point, and it's an active process, and we have to take the reins of our own connections to the higher within, which is within us, and we need to finish that job that we were here to experience and create for ourselves and together in harmony.
Absolutely. That's well said.
And it's about harmonics as well. These slightly higher dimensional entities are pretty clever. They have advanced technology. They have artificial intelligence, which is connected to all cell phones and cell towers and satellites. This is all artificial technology that's been co-opted. So instead of allowing us to evolve with this crystalline core within the pineal gland, which is our antenna, our inner antenna. See, bugs and insects have external antenna, and those are mirrors for us. Where are our antenna? Well, you could say there are ears. Well, our ears have sound, yes, and they do vibrate. But the true antenna is the crystalline core within our brain, which is the core, which is entrained tuning to the crystalline core of, guess what? The planet, the Great Mother, Gaia Sophia. And so she is entrained with the crystalline core of her brothers and sisters. Where are they? They're in our galaxy. Why, we're in a spinning galaxy of light and sound and all kinds of fun stuff. So all of this is coming together all the way back to the galactic source, and I do think that 2012 is a significant time. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just as much in amazement at this whole process. I'm just amazed to be here alive today to talk about it. And there are still days when I don't want to be here, so, don't get me wrong.
Well, I'm glad you are here. I'm very glad you are here.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
But it ain't no picnic.
Well,
no picnic. There's days
when the ants come in. Life is difficult.
Yeah. So that's just the nature of life, and you just have to know what dimension you're dealing with, and not try to apply seventh dimensional technology to third dimensional lower vibrations, because sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes it doesn't work the other way. But if you know what's going on and you have an intuitive sense, then you can just flow with all of this, and it's a lot easier. And I think that we are in the age of Aquarius. According to my calculations, we ended the age of Pisces, and people are going to say, how do you know this? You don't know. This is a 100-year process. Well, you know what? People with PhDs in bullshit know a lot of things that they spout all the time, and you know what? You can just flush that crap down the toilet. I know for myself that the age of Pisces ended on September 30th, or the last day of September of this year, 2011, and the age of Aquarius officially began at a precise moment in time, because that is how creation works. It's a very precise thing. It's not namby-pamby. Well, in about 100 years, maybe Aquarius is coming around. No. It doesn't work like that. It's split-second timing, just like, you remember those old James Bond movies that I used to love and I still love, where James Bond, no matter who he is, comes in, and it just looks like the world's going to be taken over by the evil forces. And at the very last moment, he always manages to save the day. Well, did you ever wonder how he did that?
Yes. Besides Hollywood,
It's very simple, folks. If you're outside of time and space, and this is your creation, then you have safeguards set up that can't possibly allow for mistakes to consume consume your own creation. What would be the point? There would be no fun in that. So there are safeguards, and they're outside of time, and it has to do with creation going backwards, forwards, sideways, and in quantum ways. So creation is not a linear event, and it doesn't go backwards either. It goes backwards and forwards, but it spirals, and it dances, and it goes up and down and all around. So you can step in at any moment. If you are truly the creator God that you are meant to be, and you are, because you are a creator in your own universe, then we step down our energy from our own galaxies and universes to have this experience here in this one. And so we're all having fun. And if you're not having fun, then it's time to look within and see, well, then what's stopping me? What are the things that are halting my experience? Is it a relationship? Is it an addiction? Is it my job? I mean, for crying out loud, I could not go into a corporate situation unless it was truly empowering, and there are those situations that exist. And kiss ass and work in a cubicle for 8 or 9 or 10 hours and be told what to do and live in fear by somebody who lords it over you. It's just a ridiculous system, and it needs to collapse.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I predict that in this millennium that we're in now, money will become worthless at some point. Now, I'm not saying that this is a reality that everybody here will experience, but when we get through this shift, there won't be any such thing as money, because the commodity will be love. And it will be creativity and beauty and the archetypes, the divine archetypes, that were meant to be expressed through these physical, biological units. But we will have ascended in a higher vibration, so I don't think that we'll have to go back through these lessons again. I think this is a final, it's last call for alcohol, and, I think we'll all be lifted up equally, and some people are a little ahead of the game. I don't claim to be one of them, but there are people that I look to that I consider ahead of me, so I kind of watch what they're doing and saying and feeling, but I also have to pay attention to what I'm experiencing, because this is my experience, and I came in here to have it. So I can't have anybody else's experience. I have to be the most authentic me that I can be, and that's what moves me through all this, through the distortion fields, with the greatest of ease.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's real important that you said that, because maybe it's something I never heard before, or I've forgotten, that like James Bond comes in and everything's already in place, so you have the safeguards. So, and also to know that it's our construct, so that we can create it any way that we want to. And money really doesn't have any value, but most people don't know that. But so we're already operating on that paradigm, but with the construct of $1 bills, or whatever you want to call it. But they have no value. It's only numbers on a computer screen for the most part. And if we don't understand that love, how important the love is right now, not just for ourselves, but for the universe, that this is the driving force. And you just speak so wonderfully. I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this. And we're at the 2.5-minute mark at the end of the first 2 hours. So, and I know we haven't really touched on. I know we really haven't touched on what we really wanted to focus on. So I would like to invite you to stay with me for another hour, although we won't be live on the air. As soon as we're finished talking, this will be available to everybody in the archives, free of charge, and welcome you to share this with everybody. Well, thank you. Thank you, Lance. So with that said, we'll just keep talking. We'll just keep going. And I want to thank the people.
Exactly.
We have some people in chat who we're going to lose, I think, or maybe not. You're welcome to stay. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, because it won't be live, but we had a couple phone callers. But
we did.
One of them I knew who they were. The other one I don't know.
Okay. Well, can we take calls in the last hour? Because it would be fun to do that.
No, we won't be able to take any phone calls.
Okay.
Because
all right.
we won't be on the air.
Oh, okay.
We're just being archived. But if people are in chat and they want to type questions, they're welcome to ask. And I already had put that out there. Feel free to ask questions. And
right.
We just have a few
technology
listening. Yeah.
We can use it.
Absolutely. And we have 60 seconds in this 2 hours. Did you want to just give your website so that people still listening?
Oh yes. Okay. Well, my book is Tales of a Zany Mystic, and it's available at a discounted Amazon Books. And my good friends at watermewell.com, www.watermewell.com, are putting together a package where there will be a signed parchment and a crystal that I've owned for 10 years. I had a huge batch of crystals that I've carried around with me through all my craziness, and I don't know how I managed to hold on to them. But I just pulled them out of storage, put them in the sun, and charged them, and handled each one, and they're going to include that with a copy of the book. So I don't know when that will be ready, but in the next few days. And my radio show is available through, you can go to www.firesidechat.com, but please, if you do subscribe to BBS Radio's archives, which means all of the show hosts, all 50, including my own archives, please use my affiliate link, which is www.bbsradio.com/7264.html, and I can actually make a few pennies off of the subscription and eventually have an income stream. And if you want to reach me, you can write me at Yahoo, zanymystic59@yahoo.com.
And we will have all this information on the archive page. It's already set up there, and join the archive and join BBS Radio. It's a wonderful venue. It's a wonderful opportunity to hear many great hosts in one spot, and check out Zany Mystic's wonderful lineup of archived interviews as well. So we are now in recording mode. So now we can really get into the nitty-gritty stuff.
Zany Unplugged, huh? Okay.
Zany Unplugged.
Is this the X-rated version?
It could be.
I love this part. This is the fun part for me, because I know on my own radio show there are times, because it is live, and it's Saturday Night Live, and there have been some crazy things that have gone on, just accidents or disconnects or weird stuff, and I find that to be the most interesting part of the show when I listen to other people on the show, on their radio shows. And so I like this part because it's so unscripted. Just like our show today was unscripted, but this is really like a Zany Unplugged. And, we can just chat and do whatever. Oh, and I loved what you did with Andrew. You guys did that, the show, on the pineal gland, God, and something else. And I've been spreading that link around to all my friends. And you guys talk at the end, and it's just so cute to listen to you guys just chatting, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah. So here we are.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I'm just going to shoot out a little message to people who have maybe been listening and wonder what happened. We just got cut off. To please join us in the archive after the show. And now we can begin. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lance?
I'm here.
Okay. It's getting dark here, believe it or not. I'm going to have to turn a light on. I'm going to have to disconnect because I can't take everything with me, so hold on.
All right. Now, while Chrissy's gone...
Briefly, I guess this is the part where... I didn't hear that, but anyway. This is the part where we can really get into the things. We brought up Gallo, we brought up Big Pharma. I talked a little bit about Duisburg. But, there's so many things that, and I love the metaphysical part because I think that's probably the more important thing. But I think this is your opportunity now to, as we go into urine therapy and distilled liquids, which we really hardly touched on, maybe before you do that, you can just talk about, what the world is really faced with the Gallows report and, how HIV has been so distorted. And, I talk at work, people say people die from AIDS, and I say, no, nobody dies from AIDS. AIDS isn't really a sickness. It's a category of illnesses. And, I've been really focused on this since the 80s, and it's only since I had my YouTube account that I've been able to, do some activism about it. Besides, protesting or talking on a personal level. There's so many things that people don't know or understand about it. So, maybe you can get on your soapbox a little bit and you can just kind of briefly touch on, where we're at today and where you hope we're going to be going with this. With all illnesses. And you're going to touch on that with Andrew in your coming shows with him. So maybe that's just a jumping off point. We can kind of go from the HIV/AIDS distortion to distilled liquids, and where does the future lead us?
Yes, very good. We're on the same page. I didn't talk much in the 2 hours about urine therapy, and it just didn't it didn't feel like it was appropriate to start down that path because it requires a certain
It's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable,
yeah.
And you know, I turn more people off by talking about urine, and then you know, and I have that natural ability anyway. So you know, add urine into the mix, and it's really like I am repulsive in all ways. But go ahead. I'll let you finish. I just wanted to say that because it's so true.
Well, I'm glad you did because, you know, the point of all of this conversation is to empower people to flush out the toxins that we're being assaulted with. There's an intentional assault on our biology, and it's a battle for our souls. It really is. It's a battle between the light and the dark. If you really boil it down to its essence. And I know that I do try to stay out of dualistic thought forms like light and dark, good and bad, so on and so forth. So I am aware that I just said light and dark, but I'm distilling the essence of the three-dimensional distortions that we're living within in an organic body. And the distilled water, the urine and the distilled water are both interconnected. Now, what Andrew said last night rings true for me, that as he did his research on urine therapy, he found a book by, I think it was I can't remember. I took notes last night while he was on the phone with me. But it was by one of the doctors that talked about distilled water, and he looked at the list of things that distilled water healed, and he looked at the list of the urine therapy miraculous healings that were taking place, and they were almost identical. And so he made the connection that they are interchangeable, that you can use distilled water instead of urine therapy. Now, but urine therapy is very old, and I'm just now starting to catch up reading-wise and with the information for the scientific minds so that we can have a better grasp of what it is and why it works. Now, the reason why I was so taken aback by your show with Andrew was because I had Jay Weidner on my show many, many times. I can't even count them now. And he is an esoteric scholar, and he's been chasing the mysterious alchemical elixir of life. And in the last two shows that we did, one of them he talked about collecting dew, and dew contains the prana, or the higher energies, that we need to transmute substances within the body. And this is all about alchemy now. We're talking about alchemy. But it can't touch the ground, and this has to do with the charge. Once it hits the ground, it goes from, I think, a negative state to a positive state, and so it loses the magical properties, let's say. So in one of the shows, he talked about collecting dew, and I thought, geez, that's an awful lot of work. I mean, first of all, you have to have huge tents or sheaths or something that's organic.
Yeah, but it's touching something, so does that still count? I mean...
Well, if you can collect it before it hits the ground, it apparently still retains its charge. So, but then I thought, you'd have to have so much dew, it's like, oh my God, this is too much dew. And so I couldn't imagine myself doing this. And I thought, okay, well, there's got to be an easier way, because I'm basically lazy. And as Andrew says, the truth should be simple, and it should set you free, and it should be right under your nose. So I've been studying esoteric junk for years, decades, all my life. So then Jay came up with this idea of, and these are all interesting ideas, of clipping the mistletoe. Well, I happen to live in El Dorado County, which is part of Gold Country, which happens to be a huge Druid settlement, and Masonics were here. So the Druids used to take silver knives, and they'd go up and they'd cut the mistletoe out of the oak trees, and they did some kind of special ceremony. Well, now I know what they were doing. They were collecting the prana from the mistletoe in a mystical ritual. So I thought, okay, well, I've got lots of mistletoe. I could collect it, but then what do I have to do? So Jay had some suggestions about how to process the mistletoe, and I thought, well, again, this is too much work. So in his last show, he and I were talking, and he said, I found the elixir of life. There's a book out by Anonymous, and in it he talks about how to create this special white powder that is the manna from heaven, and so on and so forth. I thought, wow, I got to get him on the show. So Jay came on, and I had downloaded the free ebook that he recommended, and it was written by Anonymous. There was a lot of gobbledygook in the beginning. I thought, come on now, get to the point. Well, eventually he got to what this substance was that you had to put in these beakers, and it was urine, okay? Urine. So I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. Okay, that makes sense. It comes from the body, and you're distilling it, and you're boiling it down, and then it turns into a white substance, and then it's a black substance. And once again, I got lost in the shuffle because I thought, this is just too much work. Jay, what are you doing? Well, I respect Jay's research and his work and what he's doing with spiritual cinema, and he is just an amazingly profound human being on the planet. And his wife, Sharon Rose, is a jewel. I mean, they are just magnificent people. So I took note of this process, but I thought, you can go out and buy the beakers and try it and tell me how it works, because I wasn't about to do it. And so then, about a month and a half later, Diana Lupi, who is one of my guests, and she wrote that incredible book, ET 101, the instruction manual, she sent me this link. And it was your show with Andrew, the original Blog Talk show you did with Andrew. And I recommend this to everybody. This is just an amazing show. And so here's where the story gets really funny, although some people might not think it's funny. I was listening to it just as Diana did, and I was so astonished by what Andrew was sharing about the pineal gland and urine, drinking your own urine, and that was the elixir of life. It wasn't something you boil down and you mix up. And he says, Andrew says, well, now what happens? Okay, you've boiled this stuff down, and now you're on Mars, and you've got this stone, and you're walking on Mars, and you trip and fall, and you drop it. Uh-oh.
I know.
And then I loved when he said, what do you do in the meantime while you're cooking this urine? You're disempowered. You're not really empowered till you get the magical stone and you have all these wonderful abilities. So I thought, well, you know what? That makes sense to me. We should be empowered at all times, because I've always felt intuitively that we are each connected to Source all the way back through all the dimensions. I don't care how many bajillions of dimensions there are. They all collapse into nothing because we are already connected to Source. So I've always seen our connection to Source as an organic living thing, and that we're connected at the highest levels, but we're also connected all the way down through the densities and the oversoul and the rest of it, if you want to see it that way. So I thought, okay, Andrew's onto something. So I sent this interview link to Jay Widener and to Cliff High and to my friend Carmen Bolter. Well, as I listened to your show, towards the end of the second hour, Andrew starts talking about Jay Widener, and I thought,
I know.
dear.
But you know him.
Oh my God! I just sent this link. I said, you've got to hear this show, and and Andrew wasn't really putting down this process, but he did say that basically it's a fool's errand. That all of this esoteric mumbo-jumbo is really just designed to keep us running in the hamster cage when we have the answer within us. And of course, Cliff High talks about the disasters that are coming, and there won't be any water, and there won't be this, and won't be that. No money, no such. And I agree. I think this is all very possible. But Andrew says you can drink your own water. You're making your own water. You can drink it. So, and then he talked about all the miraculous cures, and then it connected. That's what they did in the mystery schools. They used the sacred substances within us, feeding in a feedback loop. Everything is a feedback loop. Nature is a feedback loop. There are bigger loops and loops within loops, and it's all a gigantic process of self-reflecting. And the Essenes talked about the 7 mirrors, where you mirror back the various things, and you can see yourself in the mirror. So it all made sense. And then I thought, oh, dear, Jay's going to be offended. Well, I have not heard back from Jay, so I don't know yet
if he was
offended or elated by this information. I did hear back from Cliff High about the distilled water, because I believe that this is a great hidden truth that the medical profession, the powers that were, the powers that be, and the minions are all trying to cover up anything that will awaken us. And I believe there is a conspiracy truth to keep this information from us, that distilled water washes out all the crap and the inorganic minerals. John Lamb Lash got on the soapbox with this anonymous thing about making this stone, and I've had John on my show once, and he's very involved with the Sophionic myth and navigating in this space with the Great Mother, which is a whole different Gnostic mythology, and a lot of people believe in all of this mythology. So I'm not here to denounce or to alter people's beliefs. I'm just saying that I do believe, I respect everybody's beliefs, and I encourage everybody to have your own cosmology that works for you. But the distilled water cuts through all of this, and so does urine therapy. It's an ancient technology. The Egyptians used it, the Hindus used it, and if you read the text, the sacred text, you'll find that this has all been gone over before, and this is old information, and most likely the higher degrees of the Masonic orders and the Flower of Life and the Rosicrucians and the rest of it, the ones at the 33rd and higher levels, know all this stuff, and they practice it, and they use it. So there are sacred substances, but the negative entities have distorted all this, and they are literally taking the life force out of children through pedophilia, through murder. They literally take children and they drink the blood, they sacrifice them in rituals, and it's a satanic process, and they have to have the essence of the child has to be a certain way, and we know that these things go on. That is not something that I will participate in or could ever even consider being a proponent of life and light and love. How can you love life and then destroy it to survive yourself? Well, that's something that's a pathological distortion of the truth, and it needs to be cleansed from us, and we need to do the job for ourselves and make our own choices. But there are a lot of people who have fallen for that distortion and are subject to blackmail and rewards and bribes. This world, this planet is going down in flames right now as we speak. My life is okay, and your life is okay, and we're having this radio show, but I know from looking into the field that there are some very disturbing things going on, and it is not necessary. The disease and suffering that's going on in this world is totally created, and it needs to be stopped. And we can only stop it by changing within and changing ourselves. We can't go out there and change the world without going within first and connecting to Source. So the simplest way to me seems to be to recycle our own fluids, and then you don't have to worry about running out of water. I had stockpiled all this water that I was afraid, mineral water and, bottled water. And then I come to find out that was a big mistake, because in that water is this and that and the other thing, and that's part of the thing that is keeping me dumbed down. So now I got all this bottled water. I don't know what to do with it except give it to people who need to drink water, I guess. But then am I destroying their possibilities by, giving them water with minerals in it. And another funny thing, I went into Walmart last night and I was looking for the distilled water, and it's in between water that has minerals added back to it and water that has plus fluoride. You can have this water. Oh, it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal. But of course, it's up to us what we choose. So a lot of people don't know any better.
It is up to us what we choose, but most people don't even know. I mean, they have commercials on TV. They say sugar is sugar. There's all this stuff about corn syrup, but sugar is still sugar, blah, blah, blah. And they're right in the sense sugar is sugar, but they leave out the part that corn syrup is addictive. Corn syrup has these properties. And why is all food made with corn? What's that about? My grandfather said...
corn is genetically modified.
Right, and my grandfather said corn is for cattle. It's not for people to eat. It was never supposed to be for people to eat that. And our diet is so artificial.
It's insane.
It is, and everything.
We're dead. We're dead beings drinking dead water that's gone through pipes. Water is... See, this is where consciousness comes in, and the work of Matsuro Emoto and many others, Dr. Lipton and so on, in that water is a living entity. It is alive in its own right, and so that's why our thoughts can influence water, because everything is interconnected at the level beyond the matter. But if water is dead, it's like trying to vivify a dead corpse in your bed. I can't bring anybody back to life. And, maybe there are some gurus on the planet that can bring water back to life. And I have a friend who believes that she can bless water with her thoughts and that it doesn't do any harm. I don't agree with that. I think that you have to render unto Caesar what belongs to him, and I think at the level of the three-dimensional world that inorganic minerals do cause damage to an organic system such as the body. I didn't understand any of this until just about a month ago, and I'm just now starting to research the books that Andrew sent me, and I know that my findings will match his because it makes sense. I mean, it just makes sense. So when I started drinking, when I had my epiphanies and I stopped taking my HIV meds, I started drinking my own urine as a feedback loop, because that was what the books all seem to agree on, that was a healing process. And so I drink both. I drink distilled water and urine. And what I noticed was that what I ate affected the flavor of the urine. So there were times when I couldn't stomach it. And I won't drink. Here's what I believe for myself. If something doesn't taste good, don't eat it. People ask me, my friends are saying, well, should I drink my urine even though it tastes terrible? No, of course not. Don't do anything that your body doesn't want to do. But you have to
start somewhere. But you do have to start somewhere, and you have to understand the process.
Of course. And so if it doesn't taste good, don't do it. Just like if beating yourself over the head with a brick starts to cause bleeding, well, how do I stop the bleeding? Hello?
I think... Well, the problem of it is, and you and I had discussed this briefly because we both have the same problem. I got into raw foods right before I went to Ecuador last October, and that's where I met Andrew and learned about urine therapy. What I've come to learn and what I tried to share with you is that when we eat cooked foods, when we eat things that are processed, it clouds and flavors our urine. It gives an odor, and when you wake up in the morning, you can smell it. It's horrific. But if you're eating raw foods, if you're eating foods that are not cooked, vegetables and fruit, or you're just drinking distilled water in like a fasting mode, that your urine is going to be like coconut water, and it's true.
Yes, exactly. And
it is true, but you have to persevere through that.
Yes. And the urine, if it's good for nothing else, even if somebody says, I'll never drink my own urine, you couldn't make me do that with a gun to my head, then I would suggest taste it. just taste it. Taste it during the day. Just take a little vial, take a shot glass. I mean, for crying out loud, we don't hesitate to slug down a few shots of wild turkey, but we can't drink a shot glass of our own urine. Just taste it and see what it tastes like. If it's vile, then you know you're eating something that's not right, and you make adjustments as a feedback loop to your own biology. And as you adjust your own food intake with organic raw foods or whatever it is that is adjusting it in a positive direction so that it tastes clean and light and fresh and tasty, then you know you're on the right track. And as you said, cooked foods, I don't like to admit this, but this is true. I thought, well, if I cook organic vegetables, because I don't like eating raw food, if I cook them, they'll be okay. Not right. The urine tastes dense and it's heavy, and it's really. I actually have fun doing this because, being a gay male, I used to get into water sports when I was doing meth, and you could drink somebody's urine, whether it was straight from the tap or from a cup or whatever. People used to do this, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And they do it to get high because they'd take a hit of the drug of choice, which was meth, and then, drink the thing and blah, blah, blah. Well, it was kind of erotic, but it was also, you'd get your high. So, water sports were...
Yeah, that's an experience, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And so I knew
about this. It's an ancient practice that, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the deer would eat the mushrooms, and the herders or the farmers would drink the piss from the snow and get high. The shaman would get high from the deer piss. So it's an ancient practice. I mean, it's not something that's
this isn't new stuff that we're inventing here.
No,
this is very old. Very old stuff, and people have been doing this since the beginning of time. So this is not shocking. Oh my God! Oh, look at what they're talking about. This is just old technology that has been reinvented, and it still works because guess what? It's organic and it's natural and it works.
Absolutely.
So I love the whole urine thing, and I know that I'm going to be looping a lot more of it, and it has to do with this is where I do believe that we can heal ourselves of just about anything. And I don't want to say anything because that's pretty all-inclusive, but most dis-ease we probably can heal, maybe even Morgellons, through a combination of distilled water, urine therapy, and maybe some other things that I haven't discovered yet. I'm looking into some colloidal silver things that Alex Putney talks about. Excuse me, but it gets back to magnetics and the balance of alkaline and acidic in the body, and that the distilled water shifts the body's charge from negative to positive, I think, or one way or the other. It balances out the inner molecular structure so that you're balanced negatively and positively, and your pH is more or less balanced, and you move from an acidic state to an alkaline state. And in that condition, all of our psychic abilities, all of our higher functions, which the Egyptians talk about, the 360-degree senses of the pineal gland, which means you can see forward, sideways, backwards, up, and down. You can place yourself in the cosmos wherever you are because we're literally floating balls of light that are moving around. Yes, and our legs are just these conveyances, these strange structures that kind of grew around us. And sometimes I find them quite unusual. I'll look at my body and think, well, what is this thing? Where did it come from? So I do think that we're moving into a time when our cells, which are conscious beings in their own right, we can communicate with our cells and our biology within us because we are God in our own universe. We can direct it and work with it, co-create with it. And I think that we're moving into light bodies. And I don't know how this is all going to play out, but I think that we're in the process now, and I want to accelerate the process and step on the gas for myself, because I have had, as you know, I've had a lot of experiences, and I feel like I've done it all, but this is something I've never done before that I know of, and I really want to step on the gas and see what's on the other side of this thing. That what can it do? Can I bilocate? Can I travel throughout the galaxy? Can I leave the galaxy? Can I talk to the Creator? Can I do this? Can I do? Well, a lot of that stuff I've already done or we're doing in our sleep, and so it's all kind of second nature. And I think it will come back to us as we clear out the inorganic interference patterns that are blocking our channels. We are channels for higher dimensions, and I think that's the bottom line. If I had to say it all, it boils down to this. We are channels for higher dimensions, and our bodies are blocked with tar balls. And so this is just a process of dissolving the tar balls, and shamans see these things. They see, when they do ayahuasca, they can identify the tar balls, and Graham Hancock talks about this in his books, Entangled in particular, which is a work of fiction. It's the first of 2 books, I guess. And it's
I hope it comes out soon, because that was a cliffhanger. I didn't like that.
Oh, I know. Did you love it, too? Did you love all the bouncing penises?
It was so gory. I'm sorry, Graham. It was the most goriest, bloodiest thing I've ever read or saw in my life. But it's real. I mean, it's got to be real. There's some truth in what he's writing about. He's giving us some information. Oh, my God. Yes. And you want to know about the satanic? I mean, this is beyond satanic. I mean, we use that word.
Oh, my God, it's horrifying.
Interchangeably for so many things, but this is beyond satanic. This is something that we can't even, we don't want to imagine.
Yeah, and I do believe that he's talking about very real powers that we discussed earlier in the show.
Yeah.
That when I talk about the negative entities, well, you could go back and say, well, yes, the Anunnaki were here about 450,000 years ago, and one of my guests, Michael Tellinger, wrote that book, Slave Species of God, which summarizes in a beautiful way and takes it even further, the work of Sitchin. So you don't have to read 20 books by Sitchin. You can read Tellinger's book, Slave Species of God, and be entertained while you find out what really happened, what the Sumerian tablets talk about, and it's a very interesting story. And why shouldn't we begin? And I do believe that of the one person who has major pieces of our galactic history, well, Barbara Ann Clow is one. And another one, Graham Hancock and George Kavassilis. I am absolutely convinced within my own inner truthometer that George holds many of the keys to our cosmology and what's really going on. And he's, like I said, he's going to be on the show, I think this week he's doing the first show on the 20th. So, but he's done a lot of different shows, and I encourage people to check into his YouTube videos and see what resonates, and don't take the whole thing. If it doesn't all resonate, take the good parts and leave the rest. Life is a smorgasbord, and you take the meal, you take the parts of the meal that you like, and go back for seconds. Get the whipped cream Jell-O if you like. You don't have to eat the fried liver. Nobody said the fried liver was any better than anything else. In fact, it might not be good at all. So just take what you like, because this is your show. You're writing the script, and you wrote fried liver out of it before you incarnated. So don't bother trying to convince yourself that fried liver is good.
Yeah, and with that said, going back to the distilled liquids, that if you want to eat whatever you want to eat lobster, like Andrew says, you want to eat filet mignon, you want to eat the liver, go ahead and eat the liver. But know that, you're maybe not going to want to drink your urine after you do it. Right. Yeah, but it's fun. It's not going to hurt you. It's just letting you know that that there are processes that things that go on in our body and the way they come out of our body, with the odors and stuff. It just filters through in the process. I guess the kidneys that don't have the desmelanator, and the odors of the foods come through in the urine, and that's,
exactly.
you know, and it doesn't mean it's wrong to eat that. In fact, it's safer to eat things that maybe are not considered to be edible when you're doing this process, you know, in moderation, because you know you're going to cleanse yourself of it, whether you use distilled liquid, water, distilled water, or the urine therapy, or fruit or vegetable juices.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we never recommend water, rainwater, as an alternative unless you filter it through. I actually have a distiller. I have my own water distiller, and I bought one for everyone in my family at Christmas time because I just felt that, you know, and actually found out my family is using it. My family are, after all these years of, you know, oh, not Chrissy again. What's she coming up with this time? They would go, I hate you because... Chrissy. I know, I hate you because I drank the tap water and it was so disgusting. I'll never be able to drink it again because you bought me that distiller. And, you know, that's like tears of joy coming out of my eyes when I hear my sister saying that. And watching my kids use it, you know, and knowing that my mother, like, won't make her coffee without it. I'm like, well, you maybe shouldn't drink coffee, but, you know, that's another story.
It makes great coffee, and it cleans the coffee maker. I mean, it's very practical. And, you know, Gurdjieff used to say that man is a machine and that we are not unified and we're not conscious. We have to complete ourselves while we're here. So if we really are machinery, and I've begun to see us literally as machines because we act like robots, then it behooves us to cleanse the machinery. And how are machines cleaned? Distilled water. They use it for batteries. They use it for machine parts. And why? Because it dissolves inorganic matter and buildup of things that don't belong in a well-run machine. And if we are machines, then we can clean out the neurons and the toxins and fluoride that is blocking the pineal gland and keeping it from being fresh and juicy and crystalline. And we can stop shredding our DNA. It's like taking a piece of paper and stuffing it in a shredder. Every time we drink, water from the tap or eat processed foods like, McDonald's and so on and so forth, and even fresh foods that are cooked have that kind of resonance. So as I started to figure this stuff out through actually sensing it with my higher senses, I could see clearly what wasn't working and what was working and what was a higher vibration, what isn't. I can actually see darkness now as an energy form, that it's just a lower vibration that it has a tendency to build up and clog that which is of a higher vibration. So to remove it, we simply remove it from within the bodies, and then you can see it outside yourself. And I think it was Christ that said, if you remove the log from your own eye, and I do think that that's talking about the third eye, then you can see clearly how to remove it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So...
and I just want to add that it's definitely plausible to say that that's the agenda, the mechanistic bent that we're moving towards. You know, it's really part of the agenda, because when they try to move into wherever they're moving to, the lower densities, the lower energies, with these bodies and everything can't go. They're not going to go, so they have to come up with something mechanistic to take whatever they're trying to take with them.
Yes, and what I'm concerned about is that in these underground labs that have been going on for 70, 80, 90, 100 years, with no oversight, with trillions of dollars to flow through them, and unlimited support from the dark side, that what is some of the plans that are being that are on the drawing board have to do with nanotechnology and the wiring of the human biology without our knowledge. And I think that the chemtrails and all of these things that are being done with metallic parts that are part of rewiring us, because they can't microchip us intentionally now because too many people are aware of it. So what they're doing is testing things out that people are getting Morgellons, which I believe is rewiring the circuitry of the human being so that we are literally roboticized and controllable from central points across the globe and from the moon and Mars and so on and so forth, because they have a artificial intelligence exists in a device that they have in the core of the moon now. And so this is just my own thought. You guys have to figure this out for yourself, but that's how I see things. And
sure.
If the chemtrails are pouring, and they are, there's no if and or but about it. They are pouring chemicals like barium and aluminum, and Clifford Carnicom has a whole laundry list of things that are in these chemtrails. Now that Mount Shasta is toxic, you can't even eat the snow without having to be rushed to the hospital practically.
And Fukushima.
Mount Fukushima, yes, and they're doing these god-awful things all over the globe and have been for 15 years or more, right under our noses, and nobody says a word, and people says, oh, those aren't chemtrails, those are contrails. Well, you know what? That's bullshit. They're chemicals that they're dumping in the air, and these people that are participating in these programs are, acting like they're 007 in this secret program, and they're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to fly these planes. Well, they need to start waking up and realizing they're killing people and that they're part of a plan that is horrific for humanity.
I heard, too, that they're possibly not people flying. And, we think they're planes
possible,
up there, but they're not planes.
That's possible.
No.
I mean, it's possible. I'm not closed-minded to that. But the bottom line is, if that's all true, and it is, then all of those chemicals and inorganic matter is falling to Earth, being absorbed into the trees, into the grass, into the ground, and is in part of the natural organic cycle. So we can't be safe drinking any water, especially water that falls out of the clouds now. It could even be irradiated. So that's all the more reason.
It is irradiated. Fukushima was 6 times Chernobyl, 3 core meltdowns. They had 3 reactors had core meltdowns, and they're still on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the recent Corvette report, but they're still on fire. And milk in California is showing elevated signs of radiation in the milk. So if it's in the milk, it's in the water, it's in your body, it's everywhere.
I've got some shocking news for you that you're not going to like. And I don't know if you've thought about this, but it's been my experience that these intense solar flares are designed to raise our consciousness, okay? Mm-hmm. But what they're also doing, and this is something that Bob Hill wrote about in his channel books, and I agree with him because I had this experience when I was in a higher altered state, was that plastic does not make it through the organic portals that we will be going through when we shift out of here. We're going to phase shift, and we're tuning and entraining ourselves to the planet, and the planet's entraining to the higher cosmos. As this is all one organic process. So as the sun beams these EMPs increasingly, in 2012 is the peak, plastic is deteriorating. Now, I had some spatulas in the dishwasher, and I hadn't run the dishwasher because there wasn't enough stuff in there. But we were going through an intense period of solar flares, and when I accidentally touched the edge of the spatula, it had melted. And it occurred to me that that was due to the solar flares. Okay, so the solar flares are melting plastic, lower forms of plastic. Well, guess what they use in everything to buffer and separate various elements within the nuclear plants? Plastic. It's malleable. And the plastic's going to melt down. And you remember the movie Andromeda Strain? Well, okay, that what the rings in the plastic were breaking down, and that was how that little virus got loose. Well, I think that was a prophetic movie, and I think somebody who was on the inside knew this.
Well, they all are. If you talk to Project Camelot, they can show all the movies. So, you know, that's their plausible deniability. We let you know that this is happening.
Exactly.
You know, and it's kind of so bizarre. You know, when you think about what kind of world we live in, it's so.
Oh, it's freaky. It's totally.
How do we have our sanity? How can we even communicate with each other when we know all these things are happening? It's like,
well, I think you and I and the listeners and those of like mind are tapping into the field that is outside of matter. In other words, we have been consciousness has been ensnared in a sense, and you could easily see this as a form of enslavement of consciousness, that we have been trapped in consciousness, and that this whole reality that we're in has been artificially held back from evolving or from participating in the grander scheme of things in the way that it was designed to be by those entities who have an interest in feeding off of our energy. Mm-hmm. And so, we're like batteries. We're like the Matrix, the trilogy of the Matrix. I mean, it couldn't be put any simpler or more plainly than a visual movie like that. And there are many movies that say it in different ways, but it is like that. We are in a dream, and we're triggered to wake up in a split-second timing, like the movie Inception. And so I think that this water thing has a lot to do with baptism and the ears and the vibration and sound and light and the rest of it. And I think that we're going to wake up in the various levels of the density that we're in, and there may be aspects of ourselves that are in the 7th density or the 12th density, and all of those are being timed to the split second, to a moment when everything will blink out and blink back in again, and the lower densities will be washed away. The distortions will be cleansed, and we will be still. We'll be whatever we are. What will be will be. And and I think that we came in here to raise the vibration of the planet. And one of my guests, Amelia Benz, she's a delightful being of light. And I first heard her on Bill Ryan's interview with her, and I was lucky enough to have gone to Grass Valley, where she had a meet and greet, and she is just radiant. I mean, she's one of the most delightful, charming, most wonderful people that I've met in a long time. And she's come over to my house here in Placerville and spent the afternoon, and we just hung out together with her dog, and I learned an awful lot from Amelia that day, which I can't talk about on the air, but I just want to say that as far as I'm concerned, Amelia is the real deal. She came in from Source, and she's here to raise the vibration of the planet. Well, I think we all came in from Source. And whether you see your source as the Pleiades or the Arcturian system or all systems, or you're an angelic incarnate or direct from God, creator, creatrix, goddess, all that is, doesn't really matter. I think ultimately we are all from Source. And we're all connected at the hip in Source. So there is nothing but Source and light and love. And so these distortions, as we start to talk about them and shove light in the face of darkness, I think that those will have to run, just as like you turn on a light in a dark room and the cockroaches all scatter. Yeah. And I don't care where they go. I just don't want to be around them. I've had enough.
Okay, we're at the 10-minute mark, and I just wanted to warn you, when this stops, it's going to disconnect us. So I just wanted to let you know we're at less than 10 minutes.
We're at the final moment.
Yes.
The final.
Yes.
Okay.
And
well,
if It's been wonderful. I mean, you've touched on so many esoteric and truths and wove them into the discussion about your life, your experience, and where we're all headed today and what's happening. So I think it's been a really full-packed 3 hours. I mean,
oh my gosh, yes.
Where else can you go and get this for free?
Yeah, thank you very
wonderful.
much. And here we are, just chatting on the phone, just sharing our own experience, strength, and hope, and our own authenticity. What could be better than that? Just to be yourself, and in being ourselves authentically, we shine as the bright lights that we are.
Absolutely.
What could be better?
And we have to give some kudos to our Andrew. Give some kudos to our Andrew for bringing us together.
Yeah.
And listening to him last night was just amazing. I mean, his evolution is just
my gosh, I just love that guy. And and I look forward to doing the shows with him. In the next week, we'll be doing several shows off the radar, and those will all be part of the BBS archives. And just between you and me and the fence post, I mean, people who can't afford $6 a month, and don't want to support my work can feel guilty about listening to it free. No, seriously, you can listen to it free. There is a YouTube channel. It's called Zany Mystic Radio, and my shows are all uploaded from BBS Radio for free by Promethean Reach. He's a wonderful being, and so you can hear all my radio shows, even the ones that are archived privately. I'm not going to try to lock those up and hide them away so that people are forced to subscribe. If people want to give freely, they can do that. And I'm doing fine. I'll survive on my little disability thing. I have been. It's not a problem. And the universe will provide and surprise me. Maybe some billionaire will hit the donate button and give me $600,000, and I can have a healing center here on my property and, have bulldozers come in and take the old house down and put in a lighthouse built of photonic energies and blah, blah, blah. But in any case, as you said, I am living in abundance, and I'm fine just the way I am,
You're beautiful, perfect.
Yeah, and everything's paid for. My car is paid off, and the property was left to me by my father, and I've been a good custodian, and I'm on a vortex. This property is on a real vortex in Placerville, overlooking the American River, and there's a guy named a goat doctor who came from Czechoslovakia, and he was a healer, and his name was what was his name? Oh, I can't remember. But anyway, he lived right across the river from me, and he had long hair, and he healed people from around the world. The doctors with hopeless cases would send them to the goat doctor, and he would heal them, and he only took silver. So there's something about silver that's important, and I haven't figured this out yet or made the connections, but I know that Alex Putney lives in, I think it's Peru. He's living next to the Ayurvedic waters, and folks, if you want somebody who's brilliant, who has a vast repository of information, check out www.humanresonance.org. Alexander Putney is absolutely amazing, and
he is.
Tons.
And he's the incarnation of Tesla.
Tesla, yes.
And he's in La Manna, Ecuador. Beautiful place.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Have you been out there to his place?
Well, I met him in Ecuador when I was in Vilcabamba. He spoke at the conference I was at, that I spoke at also, and he was amazing. I talked to him about his information and asked him who he was in contact with, because it resonates with so many different people.
Oh, yeah.
And he said he tried to get in contact with all these different people, but none of them got back with him.
Same
it is
with
interesting.
Andrew tried to contact several people that he told me privately, and I won't mention names because I don't like to spread information around about other people that are in the world, but I thought it was interesting that some people who claim to be way-showers and leading the way about various conspiracies weren't even interested in what Andrew had to share, but you and I recognized that there was just the most amazing information. So I don't know if it was just that we were ready or that we're vibrating at a higher resonance or we just recognize truth when we see it. But to me,
all of the above.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's a little of all that. So, yeah. Thank you for putting me in my place there. But yeah, I mean,
thank you.
These cool people are out there, and they're out there for us to discover. So it's like a treasure hunt. Doesn't it feel like a treasure hunt?
And I think also too that we have our own truth, and not everybody shares that. So it's okay that we're all operating from different areas. And we're all connecting dots in different ways. I mean, that's what I do. I'm the dot connector. And I just, I take it all in. I take in all this information, and I say, wow, your work with Gurdjieff, at the the fourth way
The fourth way, yeah.
Group. And, I've heard Gurdjieff being mentioned before by David Wilcox, but I don't have time to read all these books. And I think part of it is talking and listening to all these other wonderful speakers and authors and hosts like you, how
thank you.
Me
and like
to
you.
Understand.
I mean,
me.
I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if you hadn't been talking 2 months ago. If you weren't there, if I had missed you somehow, and Diane hadn't sent me a link to your show, I wouldn't have discovered you guys. And then I wrote to you, and I wrote to Andrew. I said, you guys are amazing. I've got to have Andrew on my show, or both of you. I was like, well, because you got the emails. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I'm so happy to know you, Chrissy, because you are so wonderful.
You are wonderful, too, and I just want to reiterate that I had this sense that things are really going to pick up, and that, as you said, there's no reason to live in fear or lack, that abundance is here now, and, great things are happening as we speak. So I just wanted to say that. And with that, we have 2 minutes left.
Okay.
So, again, you want to give your website, you want to plug something important, go right ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, if you insist.
Yes.
Oh, this is so hard. Well, anyway, in a few days, check out, if you want my book and you want a personally signed parchment with a personal crystal that I have cleansed myself, that I have owned in my possession for 10 years. This is not something I bought from Arkansas, although that would be nice too. These have been in my possession. I have blessed them, and I have put my own consciousness and water in the crystal. You can interpret that as you like. Then go to www.watermewell.com. In a few days, there will be a link to buy the book, and I don't know what it'll cost, but believe me, it'll be worth it. And
absolutely.
You'll support Water Me Well, too. Check out their wonderful stuff there. If you subscribe to my radio show, please do so through this link, www.bbsradio.com/7264.html. And you can find that information at www.afiresidechat.com. And if you want to write to me with comments or questions or anything at all, or you want to be a guest on my radio show, write to me at zanymystic59@yahoo.com.
That's beautiful. And
yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't have any websites or anything else. I'm not a big person that promotes himself very easily. So it's kind of you have to kind of pull this information out of me, and I thank you for forcing me to do it, because I hate people who are constantly promoting their work and their essences.
Well, thank you, Ann. At 5 seconds, I want to say thank you, and I love this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.